United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Karen mentioned something that we may not be on Zoom next month, so just to let everybody know, I think the county commission is going to decide at their next meeting whether Zoom will be part of the meetings in the future, but just to give everybody a heads up. Mac, you got some announcements?
As a follow-up to your Zoom comments, one portion of that relates to the executive order that the governor allowed to expire that allowed board members to attend by Zoom. That part will probably disappear. We may continue public participation by Zoom, but that's completely at the direction of the Board of County Commissioners, and I think that's on next Tuesday's agenda.
Okay.
With regard to our meeting tonight, we do have some continuances for you to consider. I think we have 4 of those. Would you like to go ahead and take those?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, the first one will be agenda item number 2 under legislative, the Walton County Civic Use and Large-Scale Amendment Zoning Change. We're requesting that to be continued to August 12th, next month's meeting, at 4 p.m. in this location.
Okay. We have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Right, Mac?
Thank you. Commissioners, number 3, the workforce housing methodology, we're requesting that to be continued to August 12th at 4 p.m. in this location also.
Motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Mac.
Thank you, sir. Number 5, the Girl Scout RV Park Developer Agreement. We are still reviewing that with the applicant, and we have a request to continue that to August 12th at 4 p.m. in this location.
Okay. Motion? Need a second?
I'll second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
And I think number 12, the Bay Grove Motor Lodge and Food Court, we have a request to continue that item from the applicant to August 12th at 4 p.m. in this location.
Okay.
Approve.
A motion, a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners. Mr.
Before
Chairman.
we get started, though, Mac, let me go ahead and get the minutes. Everybody have a chance to read the minutes from the last meeting? Okay. Did they need any changes? We need a motion?
Motion.
Motion to approve. We need a second.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Mac, go ahead.
Thank you,
I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman. That brings us to agenda item number 4, our first legislative item for your consideration today, the Deering small-scale amendment with rezoning. Bob Baronti's reviewed that, and I'll ask him to briefly introduce it for us.
Okay.
Good evening. As Max said, this is a small-scale future land use change with a rezoning application submitted by Daniel Daring, requesting to change from current future land use of rural residential with a zoning category of rural village to future land use of industrial and extractive uses with a zoning of light industrial for a warehouse. It's on .14 plus or minus acres. It is located in District 1, and the parcel number is published in your staff report. Mr. Chair, can I enter the staff report in the record?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, there are no outstanding comments. There are no school board comments. Everything else is approved or staff approved. It was given a recommendation at the TRC for approval and to move to the Planning Commission. The applicant is here today. Do you have any questions from me before we turn it over to the applicant to speak?
Y'all got any questions for staff? All right, thank you.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to staff.
Is the applicant here? Okay.
So if anyone has any
Yeah,
questions.
I got a
happy to
question
answer.
for you.
Okay.
Is this part of the recycling facility?
No, it's a separate lot. It's
Okay,
next to
but
the
it's
recycling.
right next to it?
Yes.
Okay.
It
All
is.
right, then what are they using the?
Next to the landfill too.
Yeah, it's between them.
Yes.
Okay. Any idea what they're gonna use the building for?
Or generally storage.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Y'all got any other questions for her?
So right now it's zoned residential, and they're trying to get it rezoned to commercial, and it's in a residential neighborhood?
I don't think it's in a residential neighborhood. There was a landfill next to it on the west side, and then on the east side, there's a recycling facility. You know, they're on 20 across from where Waste Pro had their landfill. The north side of the road's a landfill, the west side's a landfill. I don't know
Okay.
what's behind it, but
It's adjacent to a light industrial use already.
Okay. And there's no residents that have any objections?
I didn't see anything in the report. We're gonna take public comments in just a second. Okay, any other discussion, questions? Okay, we'll open it to public comments then. Anybody in the audience would like to speak?
Recycle center. I own the metal recycle center beside that lot.
Hmm?
That was one corner that was lost out of my acre, years ago, and before I bought the recycle property. And I just wondered about the measurements, because I have a driveway going into the recycle through that property. It's been there for probably 40 years. Because there's another resident at the end of that driveway. It's not mine. My residence is in the recycle property, but there's another resident at the end of that driveway. And I was wondering about the measurement of that. I couldn't tell. The drawing we received in the mail was so small I couldn't even read it with a magnifying glass. Wondering if that size of that building is going to block my entrance to my recycle business.
Is your entrance on their property?
It's cut through that property for probably 40 years.
I see, I think I see what you're talking about on the survey, but I don't know, that's gonna be a staff question on what to do about a driveway through a piece of property. We'll ask staff what they.
Okay, I don't object to the warehouse building as long as there's room for me to still have an entrance into my business.
Well, it looks like to me the driveway runs right through the middle of the property from the survey. So I would imagine whatever they build's gonna be right on top of this driveway.
That's my question. I couldn't tell by the drawing if there's.
They've got it on the screen now.
Okay, that's my question. If there's an easement law or something that would prevent that from,
If there's an easement, they shouldn't be building a building over the top of it. I can tell you that.
but if they got room to build it without, and still allow me an entrance that I need for my business, I don't object to the building at all.
And I can't answer that question, so we can ask staff if they know
Okay.
anything about it.
It's important to me. It may not be important to anybody else, but that is a question.
Mac, you got any idea about that?
For any access across this property, maybe the applicant could speak to that?
Wouldn't be the time or place to address any easement issues or things of that nature. Oh, you want to address it now then? Then what we were anticipating was that, well, he's also has construction in, encroachment into a building setback line for a fence, but I'm not going to address that, but we'd be happy to. What we were planning was sharing the driveway with Mr. Klein.
Okay.
We don't need to, the building isn't in the driveway, it's on the far, if you're looking at the survey, it's in the far right corner. It's not, it doesn't encroach onto the driveway portion. And the access goes to the, if you're looking at it, it goes to the right side. The driveway, the access doesn't continue all the way to the end of that property. He's been using it as an entrance to his scale. It doesn't go all the way back to the property line.
Okay.
But we don't have any problem with Mr. Klein using it's just going to be a gravel drive, and we don't have any problem with that.
Yeah, but we don't have anything that says that, that secures that for him, and seems to me we've got an issue with whether it's, if we need something in writing or not. That's what I'm.
Okay, but in essence, the zoning now is rural village, so there could be a residence there, and the residents could block the driveway.
Yeah,
Right, so I don't see how that would affect the rezoning issue of, I can understand addressing that at the time of a, development order, but not at this time.
Mac, is that something we can go ahead and do, or do we need to, 'cause she's right on that, it doesn't really affect the zoning, but it will affect the development order when it comes to us.
That's when we were attempting to address it.
Property that's proposed for development, certainly at the development order stage, we would need to see exactly where that was.
Is that going to affect what we do here today, though? Because that can be addressed at the next.
I don't think it would affect today's recommendation, but you could certainly condition that to the applicant provide more information before we go to
Right. Okay.
Yep. I think you, today's action doesn't propose any construction or development. It merely changes.
Either way, they're going to have to address that at the development order.
I have to address that at development order stage. If someone was going to build a house on that lot, they'd have to address that at the building permit review stage before we could.
Yeah, and they may come up with something between now and then where they
And they may choose
put
to.
an easement on there that they could be recorded so that they could have that for the
That's
development order phase two.
A very common circumstance to formalize an arrangement and possibly relocate the easement to facilitate the development of the subject parcel.
Okay.
It does provide access to another property. That have any other access, then we would absolutely require that access be maintained as a condition of any development order that was approved on that.
Okay.
Not their only access, then it becomes a matter between the two parties.
And that's just something that's going to have to be looked at. We don't have the wherewithal to figure that out tonight, so, okay. Yes, ma'am, you got something else?
That's not the only access to the property.
Okay, well, that'll all come out then,
Exactly.
and y'all can work all that out.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. All right. I don't think it will affect the decision we make here tonight on the land use, so if y'all want to continue on, I think we probably should on this, but it will affect the next part of the process, the development order. They'll have to come to grips with that. So. Okay, thank you, sir. All right. Okay, do we have any other comments from anybody in the audience? Anybody on Zoom? Okay, we'll close public comments. Any discussion or additional questions? All right.
No objection to the land use change. Let's make a motion, we accept it.
Motion to approve, okay. Second?
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the next item is agenda item number 6, the Eden's Landing small-scale amendment. This also has been read by Bob Baronti, and I'll let Bob.
Mr. Chair, as Max said, this is project number FLU 21-000003, Eanes Landing Small-Scale Amendment. This small-scale amendment is being submitted by Walton County Board of County Commissioners on behalf of Eden's Landing Development Partners, LLC, requesting approval to amend the future land use of conservation to mixed use in the official zoning district of conservation to traditional neighborhood development on 0.99 plus or minus acres. This project is in District 1, and the parcel number is in your staff report. Mr. Chair, this is to clean up a Scrivener's error of the .099. As you are aware, you've already heard and recommended approval to the BCC for the development order that surrounds the parcel. This will just bring in this .99 of the total unit to match its existing land use change. There's no outstanding comments. You have in front of you, the Board of County Commissioners requested during the hearing for the development order to investigate subsurfacely the project. It has been submitted to you for your record. Can I enter the staff report in the record, please?
Hey,
And this, there's been no written public comments on this, and it meets the comprehensive plan and land use plan.
okay, thank you. Y'all got any questions for staff?
And the applicant is here, or actually, I am acting for the agent. However, David Smith, the agent for the overall plan, had submitted what was requested for this meeting for the proof that there is no old cemeteries or anything under there. And as you
That's
could
this
see,
report?
yes, sir.
Okay.
And you can see in the table, other, I believe it says other, it says that there is nothing been determined that under there.
All right,
Questions from me?
I think we're good. Mr. Smith, did you have any questions? I mean, comments? Y'all got any questions? Okay, I think it's pretty cut and dried on this one, so. Y'all got any discussions or anything? No more questions for staff, anybody? All right, well. Your wishes? Oh, we better open public comment, I'm sorry. Does anybody want to speak on this? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Yes, I have a question. It seems like this has been done backwards. The development order was approved on this property back in May, and now it should have never been approved with the conservation land designation. And I just don't understand why this has been done backwards, and the land use changes came after the development order. Someone explain that to me?
Matt Carpenter's going to explain that to you.
Hi, Celeste. The reason we're doing this particular procedure, as we were moving through the development order process, there was general agreement that this was a Scrivener's error, and the development order was moved forward subject to confirming that. And that's where we are today. On the advice of our land use attorney, Mr. Steve Hall, rather than going straight to the BCC and asking for an ordinance approving a change based on a Scrivener's error, we thought it prudent to back up and go to the Planning Commission and provide notice to everyone in the surrounding area and give everyone an opportunity to bring forth any competent and substantial evidence that might support this continuing to be conservation and not a Scrivener's error. And that's what we're here tonight to do.
Well, so some of these other projects that, like the one prior, you know, could someone get a development order on a property and then later come back and change, like the project that was just heard? Why does there need to be a land use change then prior to a development order? Because it seems like this was done out of order.
Well, this was a little unusual of a circumstance, and the only thing that appears out of order on this is we took the opportunity to invite additional public comment by bringing this back to the Planning Commission and delaying the project to give the public an opportunity to weigh in on whether or not this is a Scrivener's error or not. And that's what we're here to do. And I would assume that's why you're speaking.
Well, I have just always in the past seen that the land use change comes first, and then you do the development order, and it just seemed odd to me that this was done backwards, so in some respects. So I just wanted to know what were the, you know, I guess extenuating circumstances, and so, you know, that going forward, if this could happen again, you know, and if you're making the exception here, how many other times are you going to make the exception and give a development order prior to a land use change that is necessary?
Well, I think this is a unique circumstance, and in the 15 years I've been here, I think I can recall one other, but I can't call the name of it right now. But this is an unusual circumstance, and this is not the normal order of things. I totally agree with you, but based on these circumstances, we're taking the opportunity to back up, and the county is sponsoring this land use change. The applicant is not applying for it. But because we believe it is a Scrivener's error, we're giving the public an opportunity to refute that or provide competent substantial evidence that says it should remain conservation and should not be changed. And because we can't find anything that supports that being conservation in the public record or in any of our files. But there might be something. The Board of County Commissioners was concerned that there might be some reason that conservation was placed on this that might not be in the records. They asked the applicant at the BCC to provide a subterranean survey to see if there might be some evidence of some unrecorded cemetery in this location, and their survey determined that they could not find any. So that was done at the request of the BCC. They voluntarily did that and spent the money. They provided the report that does not indicate that there's any reason underground that this should be in conservation. And that's part of the evidence that's being submitted here today. And if there's any other evidence of any reason that this conservation future land use was originally placed here that got converted to zoning when we changed to zoning, we're here to listen to it.
All right, well, thank you. And I just, you know, I'm always concerned that things are not done the way the progression should be done. And I saw this was done in out of progression and out of order, and wanted to know what the circumstances were. So thank you.
Thank you.
You got anybody else on Zoom? Margaret, you there?
Yes, I just unmuted. Thank you. And I understand mistakes happen, but that area, it has a lot of conservation zoning around it. It seems like perhaps the village mixed use or the mixed use is the error, and the conservation is what that land really should be and probably was in the past before it was changed. Being so close to Eden Gardens and being in the area it just seems like conservation is the proper designation for that property. if it changes, do you see it adding density? What would be the reason to change it if they haven't asked for it?
Because it was a mistake made when it was originally recorded.
Yes, ma'am. As the chairman just said, this is Matt Carpenter, planning director. We believe there's an error on the map, and we have no records to support the present conservation designation. We just think it's wrong.
Okay, I understand that. It just seems like a zoning change is, and maybe it's not a zoning change, but I would venture to guess, and I don't have the historical records, but that mixed use area, that pink area, was at one point conservation. And that's probably a better designation for that area.
And we're looking for competent and substantial evidence in this hearing to support that. That's why we're having this hearing. We have no records at the county to support that, and so we're asking the public to bring something forth that we don't have. And this is an extra step that we're taking that, as the previous caller suggested, is a little bit out of the normal order of things, but that's why we're doing it, to give the public an opportunity to support the present conservation land use with competent and substantial evidence that supports why it was originally designated as conservation compared to the rest of the surrounding parcel.
Well, do you think the rest of the surrounding parcel was at one point conservation and they just didn't add in that, or do you know?
No, ma'am. Any change to the land use has to be supported by the things that Florida statutes require to support any land use change. We don't have any of that stuff in our records to support the conservation land use. We got a lot of stuff in our records to support the traditional neighborhood development land use, or the surrounding land use and zoning around this 1 acre parcel within the overall existing parcel. We don't even have a legal description in any records, including the property appraiser records for this 1 acre parcel. It's never been designated as a separate parcel by the property appraiser. And that's normally a requirement to get a land use change. You got to have a defined boundary. And this one does not have one in the public record. We have an estimate of one on the map, but no legal description.
Right. It is an acre, and it just seems like if we can leave it conservation, that would be nice, considering the property around it. Not the pink part, but everything else in the vicinity. But, okay, thank you so much. I appreciate being able to chime in.
Ma'am, thank you. We got anybody else? Okay, we'll close it to public comments. How about staff? Y'all got any questions for anybody?
Is the pink area that is multi-use right now? Is there plans or?
Subdivision there. There's a subdivision there.
And the development's already been approved, hasn't it? Yeah.
Subject to resolving this outstanding issue, which we asserted we believe was a Scrivener's error.
All right. Anybody else? Mike, you need to say something? No. All right. All right. All right, well, what are your wishes then?
I'll move to approve.
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Mr. Chairman, the next few items are quasi-judicial in nature.
So we need to open the public hearing, Mr. Chairman?
All right, we'll open public hearing. All those that plan to speak on any of the upcoming projects, if you would stand and raise your right hand.
I state your name.
I, Matt Carpenter.
Do hereby swear or affirm that the testimony I present will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Staff in the audience are sworn, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. All right, we'll close public comments now, is that right? Temporary? Public hearing, all right. Public comments are closed, but public hearings open.
Public comments will be after each item.
That's right, all right, just making sure. Go ahead, Mac, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, we're at agenda item number 7, the South Walton RV Resort. This is a request to approve by final order for this major development, and I'll ask Bob Baronti to briefly introduce it.
All right. Okay.
I apologize for that.
All right.
As Mr. Carpenter said, this is a South Walton RV Resort project. It is the development order. It will go to you, and pending your recommendation, either for or against, it will meet on the TRC with the land use change that has already been heard by you. This is a major development application submitted by Emerald Coast Associates on behalf of SRB Land and LLC, requesting to develop an RV park with 64 pads, clubhouse and pool with a gated facility on 9.93 plus or minus acres with future land use of residential and the zoning district of neighborhood infill. That is what it is currently. The parcel numbers in your staff report. Mr. Chair, before I turn it over to the agent for an in-depth presentation, all comments have been addressed. As I said, this development order cannot go in full force until the board decides first on the land use that you've already heard. It meets the comprehensive plan, and it meets all staff comments. The agent is here to give an in-depth and also an update on, we had a meeting with the public, the neighbors to the project, and they have agreed to work together to bolden the landscape. It'll be presented to you tonight. It's not in your staff report, and I'd like to enter the staff report into record, please.
Okay, you may.
You have any questions of me before I turn it over to you?
Questions for staff? Okay, we may have some in a little while, but.
Yes, sir. I will turn it over to the agent.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Dean Burgess with Emerald Coast Associates. We're here to present the South Walton RV Resort to you. I'm going to go ahead and put this just as a reference on the easel. You may recall in May we were before this board for the land use amendment. The land use is currently residential and the zoning is infill. We requested this to go to mixed use with a zoning of coastal center mixed use, which was approved by this board. The purpose of the meeting today is to hear the projects and the details of the project. However, you'll recall from that meeting, there was quite a bit of conversation. It's an RV resort that's being proposed. That was no secret then, no secret now, and we certainly are prepared to dive into the details of the development. I do have some exhibits that I'd like to pass out now. I'll refer to them further on in my discussion, but I'd just like to pass them out now so we don't interrupt our train of thought.
Yeah, well, Mr. Burgess is passing out. I also want to point out that we received late a letter from St. Rita's Church. It's on your thing. If you can enter that also in the staff report.
Okay, we can enter that.
The project that's before you tonight is located on Mall Drive, and just as a refresher, vicinity of the project, once again, is south of Highway 98. Our Our property is immediately north of the Helen McCall ball fields. North of our project is St. Rita Church. To the west of us is the Salt Air Development, the public recycling facility, and the U-Haul facility is south of it. To the east is the Arnett's Farmers Market, actually to the southeast, Edgewood Terrace subdivision, the Shannon Drive Light Industrial Complex, and a number of commercial facilities that abut Highway 98. The property encompasses 9.93 acres. As I said, it's a coastal center mixed use. Zoning is what this project is conducted under. The allowable floor area ratio is 2.0. We propose 0.015 as a floor area ratio. Impervious surface ratio allowable is 60%. We come in at 41.37, meaning that nearly 60% of the site is reserved for open space. The maximum height of any of our buildings, which the largest building is the maintenance facility, is 23.1 feet tall. The actual RVs that will encompass the vast majority of the property obviously carry a DOT maximum height limit of 13.5 feet. I find that important because you don't even find a subdivision where the houses are 13.5 feet tall. So I think from a height perspective, the project is very in keeping with the area. Coastal center mixed use allows for a number of different uses. We fall under the general commercial category, which does allow RV parks, and we prefer to refer to this as an RV resort. It will be a top-notch, well-done RV resort. Coastal center mixed use also allows single-family, attached and detached, multifamily, lodging, civic uses, parks and recreation, general commercial, neighborhood commercial, professional office, live, work, and artisanal business types. Just in keeping with those uses, obviously around us, there's a variety of those uses in play with Saltaire's proposed development, the church, the ball fields, etc. I did want to point out that our application that's up for review is for 66 pads. It has always been 66 pads. I think during our pre-application meeting, we had 64, or it got put on the application that it was 64. There are 66 pads, which equates to, if you were to look at it from a density perspective, 6.65 units or pads per acre. An RV park is based upon floor area ratio and impervious surface ratio rather than units, but I know a lot of people think of them in terms of units, so I wanted to just put that in perspective. Water and sewer connections will be available to each RV pad. This was part of our discussion when we met with the neighbors, that I think there was some confusion that there were going to be holding tanks, there was going to be a pump out facility. There will be sewer service as well as water service to each and every pad site. No pump out facility, no vehicles moving to pump out and go back to their site or anything of that sort. Along that same vein, electrical hookups will be at each RV pad. Again, during our discussion, it became evident when we met with staff and the neighbors, there were concerns with RVs idling, generators running for power, and that is not the case. The plan for the facility is for the RV park, they plug in, and nothing gets started. There's no generator running, there's no engine running. Similarly, the RVs will not be allowed to move for the duration of their stay. They come, they pull a vehicle behind them, or they have other arrangements, but during the course of their stay, the RV vehicles are not allowed to pick up and leave. I don't know who'd want to drive to dinner in their RV, but that has been a concern, and we wanted to put that to rest. During the course of our site planning, I just wanted to point out a few things. Our design team, in discussion with the neighbors, predominantly, this is Edgewood Terrace here to our east. And there are 3 homes that back up to our proposed project. Initially, we had a site layout. I don't know if you can see this. I'd be happy to walk it up to the board. There was 6 units laid out. And prior to having any community meeting, we design team decided that probably is not in good faith to the neighbors. We came up with an alternate plan that dropped it down to 5 units abutting the neighbors. Again, as we talked about it with the owner and the rest of the design team, we still wanted to try to reduce that. We reduced it down to 2 units abutting the subdivision to the east, and a 10-foot landscape buffer, which is the required buffer. We thought, from a compatibility standpoint, we need to do something more. We provided a 20-foot landscape buffer, which is above the required buffer width for the development. And this is what we went to our community meeting with, was 2 units abutting the neighbors with a 20-foot landscape buffer. During that meeting, it was asked if we could provide a larger buffer, and we took a look at it, and we saw that we could push the road over, squeeze the unit. We came up with a 25-foot buffer and decided to go ahead and do the required plannings for a 20-foot buffer within that, rather than just doing the plannings for the required 10-foot buffer. So that's where we sit today. We have hired Kelly Freimeyer, who's landscape architect. Mr. Babcock.
Is that St. Rita's Church north of that last plan? There's no,
Yeah, they're north of it.
okay, so you haven't, okay.
St. Rita is north of the project, correct?
You've eliminated a lot of things backing up to St. Rita.
Yes. Now, of course, these units do back up to their property. Over here, the only thing that backs up to it is a pool and our clubhouse facility, but that's basically up against their
You had
daycare
mentioned,
facility.
Is there a minimum maximum stay of these RVs?
I would have to ask the owner to elaborate on that. I know there is a time frame that's been placed on it. Mr. Pike Hall's here if you'd like him to.
He can answer that when he comes up here.
Okay. I do plan to have him speak so he can cover that when he comes up. Regarding landscape buffers, what we have agreed to do is to enhance the buffer along our pool facility and clubhouse, though it abuts their St. Rita's daycare. The developer wanted to go ahead and add a hedge there, one to screen the daycare from us and equally to screen us from the daycare.
Is there a fence there?
There will be a fence as well. So there's
How about on the east side also?
on the there's a fence around the entire project except for the wetland area itself.
Okay, thank you.
6-foot high vinyl fence. The buffer that we've been discussing here on the east side, this illustrates, the plantings. As I said, they're in keeping with the 20-foot requirements, and the buffer is 25 feet. We do have the 6-foot vinyl fence also there, and we've hired Kelly Freimeyer to discuss with the neighbors specifically plant species, potentially size of plants, how we may want to cluster them and offer potential hedges, but she'll get with those neighbors and try to pinpoint a buffer that is acceptable to them. So that's our mission regarding buffer. Real quickly on stormwater, we've got two large wet detention ponds. Obviously, well, they are interconnected through the collection system, so they function as one pond. They both equalize, and because this side is roughly the same size as this side, we decided to have the ponds equalized. They function better that way. We did choose wet ponds to minimize the amount of fill necessary on the site, and also with a high water table, I think they'll be aesthetically more pleasing than dry ponds that may be soupy and wet at times. I should mention that the stormwater detention facility is required to meet the 25-year storm attenuation. We have met the 100-year criteria, so our post-development discharge is lower than the 100-year pre-development discharge. So that's above and beyond the criteria, but we wanted to, understanding the neighbors' concerns with flooding and retention that they've experienced, we wanted to make sure we weren't going to be contributing to that.
Isn't there a mosquito control ditch on the east side also?
There is. There's a mosquito control ditch actually on the south end of the property. It runs along the east side and then continues to the east out to County Road 393 and goes out to the bay. Regarding the exhibits that we passed out, Exhibit A, we've kind of already discussed. Just kind of what it does is puts in perspective what we're asking to do with this project with what's around it. Again, South Walton RV Resort is designated as number 2. That's our project. Immediately to the west of it, you can see the Saltair PUD, which proposes some 130 traffic trips. It's a large mixed-use development. To the south, of course, are the ball fields. To the southeast is the Arnett's Farmers Market, which is just under construction. Edgewood Terrace, of course, to the east. Light Industrial Park to the northeast, and St. Rita's Church to the north. So there's a lot going on in this area. I think an RV park is suiting and fitting to the area. Certainly more so than a single-family residential subdivision immediately between the church and the ball fields. Exhibit B is just an enhanced view of Saltair to our west, which is the most significant development that's going through the system right now. And it helps to shape that entire area, and I anticipate that definitely along Highway 98, the trend will be more commercial and retail development in the area. From a compatibility standpoint, I understand that the neighbors to Edgewood Terrace on the east have concerns, but considering everything that's around us and them, we've made considerable efforts to mitigate our impacts just by limiting our numbers of units. We've got 2 units that abut them. There's only 3 of their lots that abut us in their entire subdivision. And the landscape buffer that we've installed continues to mitigate that, the fence, and hopefully working with Kelly Freimeyer with some plant species and enhanced planning, we can satisfy all of their desires. Another technical aspect that we should touch on is the traffic counts. South Walton RV Resort proposes 19 p.m. peak hour trips. In relation to the other developments in the area, Saltair had 130 p.m. peak hour trips. The Burger King that is proposed to come across Highway 98 will be 48 trips. Church of God was 27 trips. So we're one of the smaller players as far as the number of traffic, amount of traffic that will be generated. And I know that's been a big concern. You look at 66 pads, they immediately think 66 PM peak hour trips. The fact of the matter is, based on ITE trip generation, the trip generation of an RV pad is considerably less than that of a single-family home. So we see that as a positive. Lastly, with regard to parking, I know that oftentimes is a concern. We've got 66 RV spaces. Each pad has 2 parking spaces reserved for it, so we've got 132 parking spaces, plus another 21 in front of the clubhouse and in front of the laundry facility, for a total of 153 parking spaces for a 66-foot or 66-space RV park. So we think that's plenty of parking. There shouldn't be any issue with parking, people parking on the street, certainly not parking on Mall Drive or trying to park on Mall Drive. Lastly, kind of going back up to the traffic counts, I did want to mention that it's not part of the staff report, but the developer does plan to participate in the cost sharing of a light on Highway 98 and Mall Drive, based on his percentage of trip generation at that intersection. I'd be happy to entertain any questions from the board. If there weren't any, I'd like to go ahead and have Mr. Pike Hall come up and speak from a developer's perspective.
You got any questions for Mr. Burgess?
All right.
All right. Thank you. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Pike Hall IV. I'm the owner of the property and will be the manager and owner and developer of South Walton RV Resort. I'm also a member of the National Association of RV Parks and Campgrounds, as well as the Florida Association of RV Parks and Campgrounds. In addition to that, I've also attended the National Association of RV Parks and Campgrounds National School, which is focused based on the management and operation of RV parks. I represent myself and my father, who's my real estate business partner. We have a combined 45 years of combined development experience in Northeast Florida and South Walton County. In South Walton County particularly, we own 90 Courtyard Circle, which is a residential home from 2004 to 2020. We developed Fairway Villas on Allen Loop in Santa Rosa Beach, which is a 32-unit residential community. We developed Courtyards of Santa Rosa Beach on Thompson Road, which is a 44-unit multifamily community. We are in the process of developing 30A, Village Station on 30A, which is a 2-acre commercial development. 1 acre has been sold to Mimo's Italian Restaurant. They start construction in about 2 weeks. We are under construction on our 1 acre, and we are developing 3 buildings which will which are all sold out. It will be a breakfast and coffee shop, an ice cream shop, juice bar, beauty salon, and an upscale Thai restaurant. And additionally, we own the 10 acres on Mall Drive, which we've owned since 2012. If you will look at Exhibit C, which Dean passed out, I'm just going to hit on some high points there. I'm not going to waste too much time. I'd rather answer your questions if you have any. Again, myself, I'll be the owner and manager, so I'll be living there about 75% of the time on site, 24/7. I'll also have an assistant manager and a maintenance person who will live on site. It's been asked before, there is secured perimeter fencing. It's 6-foot vinyl fencing around the entire resort, except for the front, which will be iron gated and have an electric gate. I'll have 24-hour CCTV cameras, security systems, dusted on lighting throughout the resort and inside the facilities that are accessible by the public. By the customers. Once my customers have checked into the resort, their RVs will not leave. There's no to and from restaurants, as Dean mentioned. Won't hit on that any further. Particular care has been taken to maintain the sanctity of St. Rita's Church and its grounds and the entire privacy of the community. As Dean pointed out, the clubhouse was intended to be in the front of the community to block the school. Additionally, we are providing supplemental landscape there. There are no windows on that side of the building. Dean went into detail on what we're working with Edgewood Terrace, so I won't go into detail there. We do have a minimum criteria of our RVs. They're 24 feet in length, RVIA, Recreational Vehicle Industry Association approved. Class A, B, or C motorhomes, travel trailers, fifth wheels. There will be no converted school bus campers, anything like that. Everything has to be a minimum of 10 years or newer or approved by myself. It's important to also note that these lots are oversized compared to many RV lots in the industry. Our smallest lot is 70 by 30, 2,100 square foot. We also have landscape in between our pads and trees, and supplemental landscape we'll be putting in between our RV lots. I have quiet hours. It's 10 p.m. to 8:30 a.m. I have check-in times, 11 to 5 p.m. throughout the week and 12 to 4 on Sunday. Late check-in and check-out is not allowed. In other words, there won't be, a vehicle getting towed out of there at 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that. Minimum and max stays was asked by, I believe, Mr. Babcock. 3-day minimum stay and then 1 month maximum stay to accommodate snowbirds in the winter. I wanted to touch real quick on Good Sam ratings. We are developing this resort to a Good Sam rating of a 10, 10, 10, which is essentially the equivalent of a 5-star hotel. Good Sam has a strong footprint across the United States and Canada and is an iconic camping brand focused on making RVing more enjoyable and safer for its members. What they do is, once a park is developed, they come in and rate the resort on a number of factors, and then each year after that they rate you, making sure you maintain those standards. So I just wanted to point that out. Again, the clubhouse is about 5,000 square foot, has a pool, spa, individual shower rooms, not a, these are individual vanity private shower rooms, all ADA accessible, ADA pool, spa, other amenities like that. So, and then if you'll flip to Exhibit D, just wanted to point out, I took a public records survey from Walton County Sheriff's Office of all of the comparable RV resorts in the area of South Walton County from 2015 to 2021, encompassing approximately 500 RV sites in South Walton County. I just want to point out there are no incidents involving violent crimes, no incidences involving children, no incidences involving sexual harassment. There's only a handful of verbal, physical, or domestic disturbances. The only notable incidences were 1 burglary in a Miramar RV resort and 1 drug violation and 1 warrant served at the state park. The state park was not, that call was related to the state park and not their actual campground. So there's nothing to determine whether that was a camper or someone visiting the park. Again, at the clubhouse, gym, fireplace, flex room. It's 5,000 square feet. It's a big, nice facility. So I believe that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Got any questions for the applicant?
Will the clubhouse be open 24/7?
No, it will not.
What are the hours?
Quiet hours are between 10 p.m. and 8:30 a.m. So it will be locked by at that
Anything going
time.
on while the church is in session?
I'm sorry?
While the church is in session on Sunday, will y'all have activities or anything going on during that time?
There's not any specific planned activities for the RV resort, but
Well,
I mean,
just the clubhouse is what I'm talking about.
it will be open. I think it would be very hard to limit hours based on mass that happens during the week and Sunday services and things that are happening at the church. I mean, they're going to be conducting business throughout the week, not just on Sundays. So that'd be pretty hard to make any kind of changes to my clubhouse. But I don't have any organized events planned. I mean, it's just a clubhouse with a pool.
Concerned about noise, is there? Isn't the church located further east in there? It's not as close to the club. That's where your school is, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the school backs up to the clubhouse, so the church is actually further east in.
So the church is not adjacent to your clubhouse.
So the church's property is right here. The school is here.
Isn't all that church property?
Okay, so
Yeah, you can see it here
here's
too.
the clubhouse and pool.
It's the church there.
Facility. This is the far east portion.
So you wouldn't interfere with church services right there?
No, sir.
There shouldn't be any noise, I would think, coming from the common areas, which are, I think what you were asking about. Looks like there's enough distance there, I would think there would be. Unless you got some real out.
Yeah, I mean, there's also a parking lot in between our property line and the church, so there's a significant buffer between the actual property line and the building.
I mean, y'all gonna be neighbors, you're gonna have to respect each other, and that'll be a good buffer. Yeah.
Yes, sir, that was my intent with having that meeting last week. It is my intent to work with my neighbors and produce something we're all happy with.
What are your anticipated daily site rates?
I'm sorry?
Site rates.
Oh, over 100 a night. Do you have any other questions?
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
All right, y'all got any questions for staff before we open it for public comments? Did you have something?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to add one thing. For a condition before it goes to the BCC, we have to have their final agreed upon landscape plan
Okay.
before it goes to the BCC.
Is that the new one that Dean was talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Dean, you're gonna provide that to him?
Yeah, I'm getting the signal that we can have that done before BCC.
Okay, thank you. All right, Dean, do you have anything else you needed to say?
No, I just want to get these boards out.
Okay, we'll open it to public comments then. Anybody in the audience want to speak on this?
Randy Gardner on behalf of the applicant. My comments are relatively brief. And they may duplicate just slightly. But one of the things I wanted to point out, that this resort, this RV resort is a resort. It's not words. You know, I could call anything nice and upscale, but what does that really mean? It varies from person to person. But in this case, as you've heard already, the clubhouse is 4,882 square feet. And there is, there's a entertainment room for games and card games for the guests, a gym, a full gym, kitchen with a large meeting room, dining area, bathrooms, and a laundry room. That's one of 2 laundry rooms on the site. There's a large swimming pool that has an arm that makes the pool wheelchair accessible. There's a hot tub. Everything is, as Mr. Hall had said, is ADA applicable. Any person, handicapped or otherwise, can be there. Excuse me. The clubhouse was designed so that no windows face the school. You don't look out a window to the school because it was designed not to be there. We've talked about landscaping, so we don't need to expand on that. There will be a live on site manager and a live on site maintenance man. So if there's a problem or emergency in the middle of the night, and the question always is, who do you call? Well, they'll be right on site. All you got to do is dial a local, dial the appropriate number, and someone will be there to assist you. I'll also add that the perception of an RV is visual to some degree, especially when you think about a park. In this case, Helen McCall Park, you have a vision. I don't mean everybody in this room. I mean, it's just natural to think of big RVs lumbering down the road, running over kids. Well, as you've already heard, once the RV checks in by agreement, they don't move, and there'll be a penalty for that until they check out. So there's no activity other than cars. You've also heard trips that the various projects generate. Trips means just that. And it's a state standard, not just, it's not their numbers. It's a state standard and a county standard. It says how many vehicles will this project generate during peak times of the day? And it's not measured by the 4th of July, of course. But the RV park is the least of all of them at 19. So there's not a lot of traffic going to be generated. The clubhouse is, doesn't guarantee, but it basically does by design, that people are not going to congregate outside their RV. They're going to talk to their neighbors, of course, just like people do who live next to each other. But at the same time, people who live in the development don't congregate unless there's a clubhouse. Well, in this case, we got a 5,000 square foot clubhouse, state of the art for people to meet, greet, and enjoy themselves. RVs are like houses, and their cost varies depending on the size and the features. In this case, as Mr. Hall stated, the minimum length will be 24 feet, and the minimum age is 10 years. That in itself generates a certain level of quality, and in general, an RV in that category will be a $100,000 price. The RV industry publishes and states that the average RV owner is retired or a family with kids. They travel, the kids. The park is great for the kids, and excuse me, and great for say retired people who are traveling as part of a circuit, which so many people do. I was hoping to overcome the stigma, we might call it, oh my Lord, an RV park. Well, this is, RVs will park there, but also it's an RV, as I pointed out, resort. It's designed to be a good neighbor. You've heard that the owner is going to work with the neighbors, including the church. The project was designed to minimize impacts to the church, to maintain the sanctity of that church, to minimize the impact on the only residential area in the neighborhood. And we've added to that by engaging the architect, landscape architect that we already had to work with the church, work with the neighbors as to what caliber trees can we talk about, what type shrubs, what type vegetation, and to help be a good neighbor. Because Mr. Hall is in this, he'll be there a good bit of the time himself, and this is a long-term project, not a get in and get out. Thank you. Any questions?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
I've noticed that you do a lot of presentations here at the planning board meetings from time to time.
Not really.
Okay.
No, excuse me, I apologize, I'm being rude.
Just out of curiosity, and this is just a question of curiosity.
Yes, sir.
The wonderful presentation you just made, are you being compensated for it as professional services?
Yes, sir. But I'd like to add to that. When you say I'm here quite a bit, in fact, just coincidentally, for no reason, I wasn't expecting that question, but it's a good question. In the last 5 years, and you could check this, I've represented 6 projects, only 6. I'm very careful about what I represent because of one, I like to think to protect my personality, to protect my standing in the community and my reputation. Type projects I've represented, as an example, was Sandestin Resort. That took about a year and a half. Very complicated. They were out of compliance, couldn't get a permit to build a doghouse. So I was approached to see if I would help, not lead the charge, but just be on the bus to help get it done. I did. The other projects I've been involved in was never, and I say this truly, and of course, truly is the wrong way to choice of words, it's never been about money. If I say sometimes, if I didn't have so many friends, I could make money because I get calls from time to time, including this particular project. A very close friend of mine called and said, I have someone that could really use your help. And I said, okay, what is it? And explained it to me, and they understood. First, you got to look at the project. If you don't believe in it, if you don't believe it's an asset, not a liability, then that's your choice, period. And I'll also add, I've never represented anyone or any applicant, or any group to oppose a project. I don't oppose projects. I don't even get involved in them unless I feel they're an asset to the community and they bring something to the table, and therefore I can help bring something to the table. But it's, in every case, I could cite them, but I wouldn't want to waste your time. It's been to accommodate someone that I'm close to that has asked me to help, including Sandestin, including a few others, and this is also one of them.
Thank you.
If I've answered your question properly, I hope.
Yes, sir.
And, but I feel that I'm compensated for my time, not for what I truly bring to the table, and not for what the developer gains. I'll simply charge for my time, and that's a minimum rate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gardner, I have a question. You think the engineers, the architects, the landscape people, are they compensated on projects?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Gardner?
Any other questions?
Oh, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Would you like to speak? Okay.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Barbara Morano, and I'm representing the Board of South Walton Community Council on this project, and I'm also a member of St. Rita Church. On May 13th, you may recall, by a vote of 4-2, it was recommended to approve the zoning change from residential neighborhood infill to coastal center mixed use. I argued against the increased density of this zoning change, but it was really more than density. It was compatibility. Compatibility. You just heard from the developer, they're saying they're compatible. Well, the applicant submitted a consistency study. The applicant admitted that. And they looked at Mole Drive from a glass that was half empty. They used terms like hodgepodge of mixed uses. They also said there was no residential. Neighborhood infill was obsolete. And this is the basis for the staff report, which said it met the comp plan. So the staff report used the consistency study, and that's what they based it on. Well, that night on May 13th was a mixture of two projects, the land use change and the major development order. Tonight, we cannot talk about one without the other. The process of going together of a zoning change and a major development does not give the neighborhood nor the community a chance to review and act on each issue. Let's look at Mole Drive, really look at it. Here's my consistency study. There are positive aspects on Mole Drive. 2 churches. You have St. Rita's, and you're going to have another church. You have a daycare center. You have a wonderful recreation area. You have a state-of-the-art skate park. You have a splash pad. You have a multi-residential, high-end development called Salt Air with shopping within walking distance and a farmer's market. Now, I'm a mother. I would be very happy to have a home there. You have a daycare, you have children there, you have shopping. This could be a residential neighborhood as opposed to an RV park. I believe the elements that I just said are perfect for a stable residential neighborhood. Well, you know, I played back that video on May 13th many, many times, wondering where was the evidence that you made the decision and voted 4-2. And this is what I heard when I played back that video. Opinion. I lived near an RV park, and it wasn't so bad. Really, it was no trouble. Now there are 62 homes. It was really better when it was an RV park because it was cleared out in winter. That was an opinion. Here's a fact. This is 2021. RVs operate all year long. They have diesel motors. They often come without cars. They set up tables outside and grill, and they entertain outside, with or without a clubhouse. You can't stop people from entertaining outside. Fact. I believe the value of the property that was turned residential has boosted the tax base and home values of that surrounding area. Here's another opinion I heard that night. The ball field lights. There is a lot of light out there, and the RV park is not a bad fit. In fact, there's a Burger King. Well, let me tell you a fact. I called the Parks and Recreation area just yesterday. The lights shut off at 8 p.m., and they're not on 24/7, 12 months out of the year. The season is in fall and spring, and one of the reasons the RV park said they wanted an RV park in the change is because of the lights. That's just not true. Those fields are going to be moved, and I took an oath, so I'm telling you the truth. Those fields are going to be moved. There's going to be a multi-purpose field there, which will be in its place, and there's going to be non-intrusive lighting operated by an app on a phone, as per the park and recreation people that I spoke with yesterday. The Burger King comment, that was truly irrelevant in the discussion. It was as if you're saying Burger King and RV park go together. Here's another opinion I heard that night. Not sure about density. You could have 80 townhomes there, and they'll be tall, and there's no fence, and then they'll be looking into your yard. Well, here's a fact. That was pure speculation as to what the plan for that neighborhood infill would look like. And here's the last opinion I heard on May 13th. You know, it could be commercial. Well, that was a fear factor. In fact, fear factor was pushed so much, and I'll tell you about the meeting that I attended. The neighborhood president was in the audience that night. Why wasn't he asked about the commercial? We had no chance to do any rebuttal on May 13th. The decision to approve that zoning change happened on May 13th based on opinion, not fact, with no chance of rebuttal from the community. So here we are again tonight. Well, first of all, I want to thank Kristen Schell, and I do want to thank Matt Carpenter for arranging a very unexpected meeting with Mr. Pike Hall, the builder, Randy Gardner, he's a former planning commissioner, and he's a consultant on the project, Dean Burgess and Sean at Emerald Coast Associates. We had Tom Stone, who was a certified engineer, and he's a resident of Edgewood Terrace. We had Michael Henry, president of the HOA. They were on the phone, and I was there representing South Walton Community Council. So we did have a meeting. It was a civil meeting, and basically all they agreed to was to listen to the architect. Not necessarily work together, as you heard tonight, but to listen to that architect, and they'll explain. They're calling in tonight. And the residents shared their concerns. Now, I asked the builder if he'd consider another type of development. Pike Hall is a good developer. His family's a good developer. That's not the issue here tonight. He has very good projects he's building. Right now, he's building a great commercial project on 30A, and he's told you about his past building. But why isn't he doing that on neighborhood infill? The property was only bought for $150,000. They've made a profit already. But no, they couldn't do neighborhood infill. They had to do this RV park because they had to increase their profitability. It is not your decision, the BCC's decision, to make zoning changes based on increasing profitability for a builder. Yes, we want them to be profitable, but we don't have to change the zoning to make them very profitable. So, Mr. Pike said he's going to be an on-site manager, but for how long? There's no guarantees in life. He's a young man, a very nice-looking young man, but I doubt if he would raise a family on that property. This RV park could be sold in a day, in a year, or 5 years. And under the different management of a firm with different standards, there's nothing anyone can do about that. It could become like Camp Gulf with minimum standards. We would be stuck with a zoning change forever. There is no guarantee. It's not going to be in the DO of the standards. It's not going to be in the DO that they can't bring a car. I mean, that is what their vision is. But that vision can change with a paycheck.
Is that your opinion?
What exactly did I say is what you
To
think is an
possibly
opinion?
change in the future.
Yes,
Okay.
that's a fact too. That is definitely a fact. You have a house,
But
you can
it's
sell
your
it.
opinion, though.
It's a statement.
Okay.
But you were critical of the opinions at the last meeting you talked about, because I know
Yes.
one of them was mine, and it wasn't an opinion, it was a statement of fact that 80 units could have been built on that property.
Well,
That's not an
depending.
opinion, it was a statement of fact.
Okay,
And you said it was an opinion, it was not.
all right, so there was a statement of fact, that was just something that could be in there, but that would have to been a development order and then
I
discussed.
didn't say it was a guarantee, I said they could do that, if that's
Okay.
what they requested.
Okay,
And I made a statement of fact. It wasn't an opinion.
you made a statement of fact about the RV park, okay, saying that you liked it.
Lived next to it, and it was not that bad, and during the wintertime, the people left.
And you're saying that's a fact, that wasn't an opinion.
No, it's a fact.
That's what you're saying. Well, we could debate that, but
Do you-
let's
do you-
move
Do
on.
you live near this?
Excuse me?
Do you live near this?
Yes,
proposed-
sir.
Where?
Well, why, is that relevant for
I'm
tonight?
just curious.
I'm happy to tell you, I live on 12 Dock Trail Lane.
Okay, all right.
So you're asking if I have a stake in this?
No,
No? Okay.
Do
You
you?
just want to know where I live.
I want to know where you live in proximity to this proposed development.
Why?
I'm curious.
I don't have to answer that question. I am a board member of South Walton Community Council, and I am a member of St. Rita Church. I have a right to stay here, and I have a right to question this development.
Not questioning any of that.
Well, then where do you live?
I live off 331 near the bay.
Okay, that's fine, too.
All right.
Let's move on.
Yes, please
I
move
like
on.
to move on. All right, we finally find out about the size of these RVs. But of course, they're saying they're only letting them in 150,000 and above, no more than 10 years. Is that going to be in the DO? Most of these RVs are 10 to 14 feet high, they're 8.5 feet wide, and they're 20 to 45 feet long. And they also say the number of trips are 19. Well, these are large monster vehicles. You know, and they are saying that it's only going to be, they're just going to pull in and not take them out. Most of them may not come with cars. So now we're going to be dealing with low-speed vehicles. And low-speed vehicles are not allowed on 98. So, you know, we've got some issues there.
Well, this is another opinion.
Most RVs, so we're going to say all RVs come with cars? Is that what we're going to say?
I'm not saying either one. You were apparently saying that.
That's part of what I'm saying is some RVs will not come with cars. All right, I think we're getting hung up on opinion and fact, and you probably took it very
You're
personally.
making statements sometimes as if your opinion is fact and other people's opinions are not. So I just want to clarify that.
Okay, that's fine. Let me continue. The project is devoid of view. Now, this is a fact. There's no beach, there's no vista, there's no lake, there's no bay. All right? And then we were told RVs would come with cars. That's what we're told. We'll just have to wait and see, I guess. Most of the RVs that I have seen do not pull cars. That's my opinion. And they will probably rent a low-speed vehicle to get to the beach. That might be a fact. If you come without a car, how are you going to get to the beach? This project does not fit, no matter how the developer touts a five-star resort. After it's clear, the road's put in, the pads are in place, in my opinion, it will look like a Walmart parking lot. This is the real fear factor, not what could be built in neighborhood infill. Commissioners, the Edgewood Terrace does not want this RV park. And let me back up a little bit here tonight. Let me
You
just.
said Edgewood Terrace doesn't want it. I thought they had an agreement with
No,
Edgewood.
there is no agreement, and that is wrong, and you will hear the two people speak tonight. There is no agreement with Edgewood Terrace and the RV
That
park.
was a question, so that's why I was asking. 'Cause
Okay, that's fine. And all they agreed to, and I was at that meeting, was the listening to Kelly Freemeyer, who's a landscape architect. And I believe they had a conversation.
Okay, so you're saying two of the three lots that border the property are here to speak tonight?
One, the president of the neighborhood association and the engineer that was at the meeting with the developers, they will be calling in.
So the
Yes.
property owners that back up, are they here, or will they be calling in?
The president of the neighborhood association, he's a property owner, yes, he
And
will
it
be.
backs up to the RV?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This plan is highly objectionable to the neighborhood and the community. The zoning has not been approved by the BCC, yet the developer wants the community to give input and approve this plan when it doesn't fit current zoning. Commissioners, I believe this is wrong. And the citizens will have a choice at the BCC meeting on July 22nd, where the zoning change will be decided. If denied, the developer will weigh his options more seriously. And as I said, this is a very capable developer, capable of putting neighborhood infill the way it should be on that property. After all, an investment in 212 of $150,000 will turn a nice profit with neighborhood infill. I want to just address some comments that they said. They talked about the height of the RV, and they thought that was compatible. They talked about 153 parking spaces. Well, that's a lot of parking spaces. That's a lot of concrete. They also talked about, let me just see what else, that a traffic light. Well, Salt Air is also putting in a lot of money for the traffic light. And when they were looking at Mole Drive, they mentioned the propane tanks. They mentioned a U-Haul. This was their glass of half empty. Well, that property could be sold and something else lovely put there. Mole Drive is a bubbling over glass of positive environment. And an RV park is transient. They're not part of the community. They're here and they go. I see you smiling, Mr. Harbin. You want to share your joke?
What about the apartments across the street?
They're usually there for a year or two, and there's nothing. They're multifamily, and they have children that will go to the church. They have children that will go to that elementary school if it is built, and they have children that will enjoy that park. But an RV or anything like that is transient, and it's not part of the community.
So no Catholics will come down here in an RV?
Excuse me?
No Catholics will come down in an RV?
No, I didn't say that.
All right, keep going.
I didn't say that. What I'm saying is, excuse me? I didn't say it, and it was your interpretation if you think you implied what I just said.
All right.
I'm not here to be attacked, and I don't
Neither am
want,
I.
well, that's fine. I just quoted what was on the tape. Okay, let's move right on. RV park is not the right fit for this space, and the zoning change is yet to be determined. And we will be there on July 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question, Ms. Barbara, may I ask a question? How many Walton County citizens do you represent in the South Walton Community Council?
We have about 500 on the mailing list, and we are in contact with quite a bit of people. We've just worked on the Blue Water Landing, which is the Horton project, and we coordinated with 16 neighborhood associations. So we're a very active nonprofit organization.
These 500-plus citizens that you represent, are they Walton County citizens?
Most of them are. They're on our mailing list, and they get our updates. We do not collect fees. We welcome anyone to be on our mailing list. So we consider them members. You're welcome.
All right, anybody else in the audience want to speak on this? Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Brian Farmer, F-A-R-M-E-R. I'm a 21-year resident of Walton County, 21-year member of St. Rita's Parish. I typically don't get up either in favor or opposed to development projects. The only questions that I have actually, result from the rezoning, which I guess these are running parallel, which seems a little odd to me. But with the neighborhood infill, I guess there has been a community meeting, is my understanding?
Correct.
Okay, and what was the date on that?
I don't recall the date. It was, I believe.
Last Tuesday?
Well, that was the meeting with neighbors. The community meeting for the project was held, I believe, in November of 2020.
Okay. All right. So that was one of the things that I was looking at. And then the other, obviously with the rezoning that we're talking about. And I know that we're here looking at an RV park, RV resort, which, listening to it, sounds like it could be done very well, and could be incorporated into the area somewhat. My major concern is with the rezoning, and again, this will be for the 22nd, but, markets change, incomes change, ownership changes. With this, we could also be looking at mini warehouses. We could be looking at car wash facilities. We could be looking at car sales, car repair, all right there. Right next to the park where I taught my son's team how to play t-ball, right? Where I coached soccer at Helen McCall Park. And so those are things just with the community aspect that I'm looking at. I'm not here trying to deny anybody the ability to do what is they're able to with their property under the current zoning. I'm just concerned with when we look at changing uses in an area. Like I said, 21 years, God willing, I'll be here for 40 more. And so when we change that use, I was married in that church, my kids were baptized in that church, and then I've got to look at an auto repair shop or mini warehouses 30 years from now. So that's all I had. I'm sure that'll be addressed, but we'll be back on the 22nd for sure. But that's my major concern. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
He had made, Ms. Barber had made mention that the president of the homeowners association is going to make some comments tonight. Is that you?
No, sir. I'm not. I'm just a parishioner at St. Rita's.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else in the audience want to speak on this? All right, if not, we'll go to Zoom. Anybody on Zoom want to speak?
Now, Mr. Chairman, as you're aware, of course, everybody on Zoom or calling in has not been sworn, and so therefore we can hear their testimony. As far as we can hear their comments, they don't qualify as competent substantial evidence for testimony in a quasi-judicial proceeding.
Do we need to listen to them?
So it's up to you if you want to give an audience at this time to them. We've certainly advertised the meeting to allow for it. It does no harm to hear from them, but in terms of weighing your evidence, it's just not something you're able to consider because it's unsworn testimony.
Okay, then we'll listen to them. We got anybody who wants to speak? Michael Henry? You there?
Yes, this is Michael Henry.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. My property does join adjacently to the proposed RV resort, and I am the president of the HOA for Edgewood Terrace. And our concerns are, as mentioned by others tonight, is the future use. If the land use changes now, there's no guarantee that that will be the future use of this property. And although a great deal of thought and care has gone into the design of this property, there is no legal obligation of the next owner to adhere to that. So whereas this might be a good plan now, in some respects, there's no guarantee that that will remain so in the future. And as an adjacent community, we're very concerned, again, about a runoff from flooding, whereas these pads are going to, I realize they've got plans to mitigate the effects, but, hard surfaces are going to create runoff. And from my most recent view of the FEMA floodplain, basically the entire property is flood zone A. So we do have a concern of that. Also, the way the roadway is lined out adjacent to our property, all the guests there, well, I say not all, that's incorrect. All the guests on the side of the resort that are adjacent to our property will go through that U-turn down there by the proposed bathhouse / laundromat. And so evenings and mornings, we're going to have, headlight traffic, we're going to have automobile noise, things of that nature. So that's a concern. Also, the lighting, I guess there's going to be security lighting or pathway lighting for each of these spots. And from the lighting plans that I observed, I don't see how we wouldn't be affected by that as well. Whereas if it was a residential community, you're going to have street lights as well. Probably wouldn't have a street going right adjacent to our property, but I think the lighting effect will be less intrusive for a residential area. But, well, those are some of our concerns as a community, because even though it affects us, me personally, maybe more than others in our community, everyone, especially on that half of Ridgewood Terrace, will be affected to a certain degree by that, other part. So thank you for listening to me.
Yes, sir. I got a question real quick. Did you meet with the applicant when they had their meeting?
You mean recently in the past week, or
Yes.
initially? I've been conversing with them throughout the process. Yes, sir.
I think they had another meeting this last week. Were you in that meeting also?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I was. I
'Cause I-
called into that meeting. Yes, sir.
I thought a lot of this stuff was already talked about.
It has been discussed, and not every aspect has been fully addressed. But we basically got an offer to work with us, and just trust us, it'll all work out. So I appreciate their efforts in conversing with us, and I hope it works out. But it kind of just take our word for it at this point. There's been no
Well, I mean,
formal written.
that's why I'm asking, because I know they showed that they had expanded the buffers back there to 25 feet. Is that something, I assume that came from the meeting and the discussions with that meeting, so is that, did you not,
I'm not aware of that, sir. No, sir. That may be true, but I wasn't aware that that was a result of that meeting, although it may have been.
and what I was gonna say too is they've got this on their plans that they're submitting, so this is not just, best of luck and we may do it or we may not. I mean, they're putting it in there as part of the development order, so.
Well, there's been no alterations to the lighting plans, and the actual location of the privacy fence and the installation of vegetation and things of that nature are still kind of in flux at the moment. We're talking about it, but nothing's really concrete. So it's kind of a good faith gesture, and we appreciate that. But there again, I don't see anything really specific.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Henry,
Yes, sir.
being the president of this neighborhood association, how many Walton County citizens do you represent?
Well, there are 37 homes in our little community.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Henry?
Yes.
How many of those are second homes?
Approximately 50%.
So you've only got about half the people that the homeowner, how many, that this homestead exemption in
Well,
Edgewood
sir,
Terrace?
I'd say 50% of homestead exemptions, and the others are rental properties.
Do they do short-term rentals?
No, sir. No, sir. They're forbidden by our HOA.
Do long-term rentals?
So if they're doing them, they're not doing them legally. Our covenant explicitly forbids short-term. Anything under 6 months is forbidden.
Mr. Henry, I have a question. How many permanent residents live there?
I do not have a specific count, including children and the total family members. I do not have the total count for each.
Would you say 15? 18, just an estimate?
I'd say more around 70 residents for the total community.
Yeah, but 50% are rental properties. But I'm thinking,
Yes.
so that'd leave 30, if you got 36 homes, you got 18 that are permanent people that live there, so.
Yes, sir. But so, I mean, as far as occupying the homes full-time,
Yes.
it's probably 90% of these houses are occupied by either renters or owners
Okay.
full-time.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? We got anybody else on Zoom? Kevin Kern, you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here. Thank you very much. This is more of a point of clarification. I learned something new tonight. I was unaware that my participation on a Zoom meeting didn't carry the same weight as a person in attendance, especially in a COVID area when up until recently you weren't even holding meetings in person. So how is that, question number one is, how is that so? And number two, does my written letter for or against, does that carry the weight that my Zoom participation does not?
Mr. Kern, the issue is simple. We are no longer able to conduct meetings using communication technology where board members can Zoom in, things of that nature. The governor's order is sunset. And we do not have any legal ability at this time to swear persons in remotely in these form of quasi-judicial proceedings. Even the Florida Supreme Court's order allowing that has been limited in scope. So as it is right now, there's simply no way that we could swear you in. So in a quasi-judicial proceeding, you're welcome to offer comments, and the chairman certainly allowed that. But in terms of it being considered competent substantial evidence for or against a project, it must be sworn testimony. Certainly all documentary evidence presented is something the board can consider and give weight to, but sworn testimony is the hallmark of quasi-judicial proceeding.
Okay, so since I'm in Atlanta and unfortunately not able to get there, this really relates to the next matter, but I didn't know this last thing was going to carry on as long as it has. So I just want to be sure that I'm doing what I need to do to have full participation. Thank you very much. I appreciate the explanation.
Thank you. All right, we got anybody else on Zoom? Christian?
Yes, hello.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Christian Rogue. I'm joining the meeting from Germany. I'm one of the 3 infected homeowners, and I wanted to speak tonight and make clear that I'm not a permanent resident, but we choose that place to make it our second home. We live in Germany, and I want to make it clear that I'm afraid that this development will have an impact on the value of our home. That's my concern, and I don't want to repeat all the things my neighbors have always came up with, and that's all I want to say.
All right, thank you, sir. Stu Danos? Stu,
Yeah,
there?
how's it going?
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Stuart Danos, representative of St. Rita Parish. I understand that all of this can be taken into accord, but also understand that y'all received a letter, I believe at the beginning of this topic, said from St. Rita. I'm not sure if that's the one from me, but I just kind of wanted to introduce myself, knowing that not all this is necessarily going to count, if you will. But if that is a letter, then it's a letter that I sent to our county commissioners, addressed to Tony Anderson, Mr. Tony Anderson in our district, in St. Rita's district.
That is
just addressing some of our concerns.
Yeah, we do have that letter.
Okay. Yeah, so I mostly I understand, I apologize, I couldn't be there today physically, but I just want to introduce myself since y'all do have the letter, as the parish administrator of St. Rita, and speaking on behalf of St. Rita as a parish, not as a parishioner, although I'm also a parishioner. But I just wanted to make that distinction between some of the other folks that may be calling in or there physically. I just wanted to make a couple of clarification points. One is that our preschool has continued to be addressed as a daycare, and it's actually not a daycare, it's a preschool. We handle kids from infancy all the way up to 4 years old, because our expectation is to actually build and develop a full elementary up to 5th grade. And we're actually going through the process right now of determining the cost of that so that our diocese, which covers Pensacola to Tallahassee, can assist us in some way in developing that. Obviously, we lean on them for a lot of land issues and lawyer, and engineering and so on and so forth, just all those things. We lean on them because we don't have our own team. That's kind of how the Catholic Church works. And so I just wanted to make that distinction that it is a preschool. It's not just a daycare. We have very strict guidelines we have to follow. Being a Florida state accredited school, as well as a Catholic accredited school, which are two, for the most part, overlap, but they do have some distinctions between each other as well as part of those accreditations. So other than that, I'm not here as a way, and if you have that letter in front of you, some of it might come across negative. And I personally don't have an issue with RV parks in general. There has been some design improvements over time, over the last, I forget how many months it's been because of COVID, unfortunately. But my understanding that there's been quite a few improvements there. Mr. Randy Gardner has contacted Father Michael, our pastor, as well as I, on occasion, with some different changes and improvements and such. But in general, it's for me, it's more a concern not about an RV park. It's more a concern about the transient community that an RV park brings. Regardless of if it gets sold to a future owner or not, the existing owner can change their mind a week after they, open the doors, if you will. So my bigger concern is the community. I do not live in that area. I live a bit further east, and in Mr. McCormick's district, actually. But some of my concern is just the community, the number of children that are there. You have Saltaire across the street that's being built. It's being built as a long-term residence place. Not considering 98 with the businesses there, Mall Drive is a pretty low-key area. Fortunately, the county had put in some speed bumps, and so we don't have people speeding through there anymore, which is nice. And generally, you have people going to the park because they're bringing their kids to, soccer or baseball practice or what have you. Or even better than that, we like to consider anyway, is that they're bringing them to either St. Rita or the neighboring church down the street. And it's just one of those things that, just the family and the community and the children and the activities we have going on. Our preschool kids, they have the luxury of being able to, walk a couple hundred yards down to Helen McCall when they want a field day and they get to go run around in the baseball field. And it's kind of cool seeing a bunch of 4-year-olds doing that. And once you start introducing things like RVs coming down the street, it becomes a concern. The bigger concern really is that the fact that the zoning, which has not been voted on completely, I know it has by y'all, but it's not been put in place, which will be on the 22nd. The bigger concern is what it's being zoned to is the fact that, literally the next day, the owner could decide that they're going to make it into a commercial park, just like Shannon Lane, which is our neighbor, St. Rita's neighbor to the east, actually, which is a great landlord. I'm very friendly with the guy. We actually rent one of the buildings from him. But the concern is that, you have 18-wheelers coming down that street. And the more that you have coming down, the possibility of that coming down Mall Drive is a concern. And I understand this meeting is not about the zoning that's already been voted on by you guys. But I just kind of wanted to mention just the long-term concerns that we have. It's not so much about the RV park, although even with that, it's the transient community that comes with that. And so that is the only concern about the RV park, if you will, that we have in relation to Mall Drive. I wouldn't have a problem living next to an RV park, to be honest with you, as I can't, sorry, my video is too small. I can't actually see who the commissioner is up there that had mentioned that earlier, but, it's, and with what they've done is great, but it's just doesn't seem like it fits for Mall Drive. The biggest concern there is safety. The owner also mentioned about the fact that, that there are minimums and maximums. Again, that can change, but the fact that the minimum is 3 days right now, my family has an RV, and we actually do travel on occasion in the RV, and we do stay at RV parks. And a lot of the times, we're not staying there for a whole week. We're staying there for a few days because, the way that we travel anyway, and I understand not everybody does this, but the way that we travel is that we travel, around the state, or we might go through the Smoky Mountains or what have you and jump from park to park type thing. So a minimum of 3 days, that means very feasibly you could have 2 weekdays or a Sunday where RVs are leaving, Mall Drive when we have, a few thousand people that are coming to our church, and you have the church down the street, having members of their church, going to their services as well. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to mention that. Again, I know not all this can be taken into account, but I want to introduce myself as the, writer of that letter. And I know you can't see my face right now, but my hope is that you can take all this to heart. Just when you're kind of making some of your decisions, is thinking about the community and how it affects those that live locally and will live locally on Mull Drive.
Mr. Denos. Mr. Denos.
Sorry?
Earlier in your comments, you mentioned Mr. Tony Anderson, and I was unable to hear what you said regarding his name. Could you repeat that?
So I mentioned about that, the letter that y'all have, presumably, I can't see it, but the letter you have presumably is addressed to Mr. Tony Anderson, which is our district commissioner for St. Rita. So I addressed a letter directly to him, and I sent it to all the other commissioners in our county.
Okay. Thank you for that. And another question.
Yes, sir.
Did I understand you to say you've got 2,000 parishioners?
We have about 1,200 family members that I'm representing right now. But we have a few thousand, I said a few thousand, that come to our masses on a weekend, every weekend. Obviously, given that we only have about 1,200 members, a lot of that are also visitors.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Danos, I have a question for you. It says you're their parish administrator. Explain what that is, because you said you don't live here.
No, I do live here. I actually live down in Seagrove.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood that then.
Yes, sir.
I noticed your.
I am a.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, I am an active parishioner, but that letter is specifically, I was representing our parish. So I'm the parish administrator, and the way the Catholic Church works, if you're not familiar, is that you have a pastor that oversees the whole parish. And then not in all cases, it depends on the size of the parish, but you'll also have a parish administrator, which is the equivalent like to, say, a vice president or somebody that handles all the operational side of the parish. And so that's what I do. So our pastor, Father Michael, he maintains the liturgical side, the religious, the faith, etc.
Oh, okay. And the parish is an area. Is that what that is, or is that the church area? Is that what the parish stands for?
Yes, sir. So our diocese, which runs from Pensacola to Tallahassee, is made up of 67 parishes.
Okay.
And each one of those parishes is connected to a church, a single church.
So it's like a geographic area.
Yes, sir. But we also consider just our property to be our parish. So it's our campus. Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. All right.
And so our parish, to give you kind of a.
I got you. All right. I'm sorry. I just didn't know what a parish administrator was, so I was just trying to make sure I understood that correctly.
Yeah. So our parish, to give you kind of a regional view, I guess, it runs from Mac Bayou to Lake Powell, and then everything south of the bay.
All right. Thank you, sir. Any other questions for Mr. Danos?
Yes, sir.
I have one. Mr. Danos, since you have an RV and you travel, have you ever stayed in a 5-star RV park? I forgot the name. What's the name? What are they called?
Good Sam's.
Good Sam's RV Park?
Good Sam rating?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Danos, you ever stayed in a Good Sam rated RV park?
A what rated RV park?
10-10-10.
Good Sam?
10-10-10 is the highest rating that Good Sam gives out. I'm sorry, I missed the question.
He has an RV and he travels. I was curious if he stays in a park similar to what you propose to build.
Okay.
But a 5-star rating doesn't have, is there not a national, like AAA 5-star hotel or?
It's a Good Sam rating is what it's called.
Okay.
And each, so 10-10-10, each number you're rated on is on different things such as cleanliness, the environment of the RV park. I mean,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, Mr. Danos, have you ever stayed at a very high-end RV park before in your travels?
No. But as I said, I don't have a problem with RV parks.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So I'll stay by any RV park by a river.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. We got anybody else on Zoom? Okay, we got another one. Yes, sir, Mr. King?
John King, local real estate guy and developer type. This isn't ideal, but, you know, the county, when Mr. Bishop and Mr. Pike III bought this property, I had taken it to the county. It was $150,000 and took it to Cindy Meadows and turned it down. They later offered it to the county again at a higher price, at market price, and the county turned it down, but said maybe the church would like to own half of it, and the county could own half of it for additional parking, and we certainly need that at the ballparks. And the county and the church turned it down. So, you know, what's someone to do with their property? I think that's, they worked with the neighbors. I can tell you, I was at a meeting when the first Edgewater manufactured home was wheeled in there, and the church raised holy Cain about that. So, you know, there's the fight of you're different than me. Well, we filled up, you know, we've got 326 apartments across the street, and we've got some retail, and we've got a Burger King and some places for these people to walk to. Again, it's not ideal, but what do you want somebody to do with their property? It's not an appropriate single-family residential 2 units an acre anymore. That ship has sailed, you know, who would, you know. So, at any rate, and the church could just as well sell and their use be something different too. So, at any rate, I think it's a good project, and it's not ideal, but if you're going to do something like this, I don't think the laundry is going to be open to the public. There's not going to be a commercial feel about it. The people that I had an RV at one summer, had enough of that, but you know, it's not ideal, but it's, as these things go, it looks to be a very, very attractive project. So, thanks.
Thanks, sir. Any other public comments? Let's see what Mr. Stone. Mr. Stone, you there? Hello? You're muted. Mr. Tom Stone, are you there? Okay. Let's see what Mr. Stanos needs. Yes, sir, Mr. Stanos, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to have clarification on the last gentleman that was up there. The church actually did not turn down that offer. We were trying to work on it together with the county, and the county elected to pull out of the offer because of the wetland study. And as a result, we couldn't afford to buy the whole thing. We were willing to buy the back, I believe it was 3.2 acres or something like that. I forget exactly. So I just wanted to have that clarifying since that comment did go on the record.
Okay.
That's all.
Sir. All right, we'll close public comments. Commissioners, you got any questions, comments?
Like to hear any response or rebuttal to the
Yeah, I'm
comments?
sorry, go ahead,
I mean,
Dean. You need to have a chance to respond to the.
I think most of these, I'm sorry, I think most of these comments we've kind of already heard, but I'll be brief in my responses. Ms. Moreno spoke a lot about really land use related questions and comments. But I would like to just respond to a few of them. The lights in the ball field, they are and can be an obstruction to something such as a single-family residential neighborhood. Them going off at 8 o'clock, I too have coached and my kids have played on those ball fields. There's a game that starts at 8 o'clock and can go till 10:30 at night. And when all stars are going, sometimes midnight. So don't want to quibble over that, but those lights stay on well past 8 o'clock. Regarding our meeting, she mentioned that Pike Hall is a good developer. Well, he is a good developer, and he intends to do a good project here. He's got a reputation to keep up and has no intention of doing any subpar development on this particular property. when we met last week, we had this discussion. Well, why did he look at it for infill for a single-family residential neighborhood? And our answer was yes. And when we got into it, as far as the demographics and the location of it, considering everything around it, ball field, skate park, mobile home community to the east, Saltaire's commercial side of their development and apartments, it didn't lend itself to single-family residential. The product that was likely and highest and best use there was townhomes, and they were probably lower-end townhomes. That's not a product that Pike Hall develops. It's not one he wants to develop, and frankly, not one I would like to see in this location. We talked about, at the land use hearing, the baseball fields and what a good fit an RV resort would be. There's plenty of baseball families that have RVs that would certainly use this park, attend the church, go to the restaurants and whatever other uses are at Saltaire, and I think it would come together as a cohesive community. Michael Henry, we did meet with him last week. He was not in attendance at our original community meeting, but I think the question was the 25-foot buffer the result of that community meeting? It was. Tom Stone spoke on behalf of the neighborhood, and that was one of the things we got out of that neighborhood community meeting was, can we make that buffer a little bigger? Can we make it as opaque as possible so that they don't see into our development and vice versa? So increasing it to 25 feet was a redesign on our project, but we thought it was well worth the additional space for the buffer. The laundry facility, we did have a discussion. That goes back to our community meeting as well. The laundry facility, there's a lot of pros and cons for it in the location where we have it, along that eastern side of the property. You could exchange the laundry facility with a unit. There's arguments that a unit could potentially cause more disturbance than a laundry facility would. Most people don't hang out at the laundry facility. They drop their clothes off, go back to their RV. When a half hour's passed, they go pull their clothes out of the dryer and walk back to their RV. It's very non-intrusive. And after quiet hours, they basically aren't used. So our take on that was it was a good location for it. Furthermore, in the event of any type of emergency where evacuations required, a fire or whatever have you, having the laundry facility there at the end of the property allows the RVs to exit the property, particularly if the laundry facility itself is on fire. So that was some of our rationale in keeping it where we had it located. I apologize to Stu Stanos regarding the preschool versus daycare terminology there. Basically, there's a lot of kids that are yelling and screaming at that location. We understood that. That was part of our design, why we put our clubhouse in that location as well. It's a noisy area on their development. It's potentially a noisy area at the pool in ours. Transient community, I think that's the heart of the whole discussion here, and I think it's a terrible misconception that's been had about this project. RV resorts, or high-end RV parks, are not transient as you think of people in the context of that word. They are, the demographic is young families with kids and retirees. We are putting every measure in possible to keep that demographic the caliber that we're looking for. The quiet hours, the on-site managers, the on-site maintenance, the type of vehicles, the limits that we're putting on it can't be over 10 years old. This is an RV community. Once again, as you heard, starting price is $100,000. They go on up to over $500,000. Everybody takes pride in their unit. There's no rental units. There's no RVs that you can call up and say, hey, do you have a unit I can rent for a night? None of that happens. You drive your own personal unit that you've paid for with your hard-earned money. You have pride in. You and your family have a good time, and when your time's up, you leave peacefully. So I think this will be a great project for the area, and I hope the board agrees. I did want to very briefly introduce Jeff Sims. He's a RV park specialist that we have as part of our team, and I'd just like him to say a few words over Zoom, if that would be okay to conclude our presentation.
All right. Mr. Sims, you there?
Yes, I am, as a matter of fact. Thank you for the opportunity. I was a park owner for 40 years. I'm the Senior Director of State Relations and Program Advocacy for the National Association of RV Parks and Campgrounds. And I also serve on a planning and zoning board in my county. And so I respect everything that you're going through here. I operated a 1010 park. I raised my family on our park, and that's what I've done my entire adult career, has been associated with the RV park and campground industry. I'm a former chairman of the National Association. I can tell you, I am from Branson, Missouri, and a very, in the term that they're using here, transient community. But this isn't, the type of people that we accommodate are not the stereotypical, what some people, and it has infuriated me my entire professional career when they refer to trailer park trash. That's not who we are. That's not what Mr. Hall is putting in. This is a high-end facility, and I've looked at his drawings, have made some recommendations to him. He's gone through our school, has made every effort that somebody in the industry, in my opinion, should do, and very few do. So he seems to be very astute. He's been really good to work with on this. I can tell you that the majority of motor coaches do tow vehicles. And the reason that I know that is back in the 1980s when they didn't, I started a rental car business and had over 50 cars in my fleet, and eventually discontinued that because they do tow vehicles. I've sat on planning and zoning and heard many times the concerns that, crime, drugs, traffic, land values. The reality is that is not these type of facilities. These are a very good complementary asset to the community. The average expenditure per day per person is $176, and that results from not only fees but also expenditures in the community through purchase of fuel, groceries, entertainment, restaurants, entertainment. So an RV park is family oriented. Like I said, my folks started our first one when I was 10 years old, so I literally grew up in this industry, and I raised my family on the RV park. And they're really a good asset and a good neighbor. And in my opinion, Mr. Hall has put in place nearly everything that I can think of that should alleviate people's fears.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Questions for Mr. Sims? No, we've closed public comment. Yes, ma'am, we've closed public comments at this time. Yes, ma'am, I understand, but we've closed public comments, okay? Yes, ma'am, that's right. We've closed public comments, okay? All right. Any other questions?
For the record, he wouldn't be part of the sworn testimony of the hearing anyway.
Right.
Got a question, I don't know who, but does bed tax come involved in this anyway? EDC.
I believe your attorney is saying that bed tax would be collected.
Would be, okay.
There would be remittance of bed tax on short-term rentals.
Any questions?
I have some comments to make. I don't really have any questions.
Okay, well, go ahead.
You're the RV owner, sir? I'm an avid RVer, and best trips my wife and I ever took just a couple of years ago, we didn't see the state of Florida. And so I'm very pro RV, okay? That's the point I'm trying to make. Our camper's parked at Topsail right now. I came in to attend this meeting. I mean, we're serious RVers. And I'm not anti-RVer. And this is a stellar facility that you're putting together. So stellar, in fact, that my pocketbook is usually state parks. I'll probably never stay at your facility simply because that's a little out of my price range, you know. So the fact that people think that this is trailer trash and, you know, it's going to get a lot of crime in there, that's not the case. We don't have any crime at Topsail, at state parks. It's not that kind of people. It's family oriented, and y'all keep trying to say that it's not a bad crowd. It's not a bad crowd. It's not a bad crowd. This is a stellar. Can't say anything better about how much time and trouble and energy and effort that your engineers have put in the presentations and all that. But when it comes down to my personal decision making that I'm charged with to do here, first and foremost, serve the citizens of Walton County. They are the top of the pecking order. Number two is to serve you, the citizens. And third, on the bottom of the totem pole, last is the staff, because the staff is here to serve in this order the citizens of Walton County and the customers. When we have a citizen that comes in here representing plus or minus approximately 500 Walton County citizens, and I can't even talk about the citizens that the church represents because they're not in the equation because of the quasi-judicial matter. But as much as I really like your facility, and you've got a fantastic facility, when it's all said and done, I'm going to stand behind the citizens of Walton County first.
Okay. Anybody else got any comments? I've got something.
There was just a moment.
Well, I've got something.
No more, nothing from the audience?
No.
Not from the audience. From the
Public
engineer.
comments are closed.
And you've also closed that. You've given them their rebuttal chance.
Yeah, we're
No worries,
closed.
thank you.
To me, it boils down to a compatibility issue. A lot of people are saying this is not compatible with the surrounding properties, which I don't know what would be compatible with this project. I mean, in this area, because you've got so many different things around it. I do not believe that a single-family residential subdivision would be compatible at all in there. And I know I wouldn't want to live there because I have heard people say, and I know because I played baseball as a young kid, baseball games do not end at 8 o'clock. They are just getting started about then. And when they run long, they keep the lights on and they finish the game. So I just don't see this as a single, it may be, like Dean said, it probably would end up being the townhouse project. And you could put, I don't know, how many units could you put in there, Mac? 80, okay. Potentially 80 units. Anyway, that's my comments. I don't know what would be the best compatible project for this, but I don't believe single-family residential is one. And this is as good as anything I've seen presented. Well, we haven't seen anything that's presented, but anything I could think of, so I don't have a problem with it.
Walton County citizens, and I understand and respect what you're
You
saying.
also represent him. He's a citizen too, and his rights. So
Well-
you can't just go by majority on everything, because if that were the case,
I get it.
nothing would get done.
I get it. You gotta have your priorities, and my priorities are the Walton County citizens, and always will be.
Sure. Okay. Anybody else got a comment?
I think compatibility is not a bad thing. I mean, I'm like you, it's not maybe ideal, but it will suit what's there. And as Mr. Coson said, that's not a bad crowd that's gonna be in there.
They're trying to defend the crowd. The crowd's not the issue.
No, and the operation of the RV park is gonna be the ultimate,
It's the Ritz,
and
It's
they're
the
gonna try
Ritz.
to operate it correctly.
and they are. I have no
And-
doubt.
And even your input said that's not gonna be a high risk as far as people.
No, it's not.
And I have no issue with that. Because, and, you know, I just gotta be respectful to the church, which it seems it's going to be. I mean, the people that's gonna use the park, there's gonna be some toleration from them about the ball field lights and the crowds cheering. I mean, there's not a perfect fit to go in there. I don't have any objection to it.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, Commissioners, what are your wishes?
I move that we approve the motion.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
One opposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Mac? Is it Friday yet?
He's had a long week.
Good night, Bob.
Unfortunately, it's not for Renee yet,
This is
or the rest of us.
Pre-meeting.
You leaving?
Yeah. We done, right?
No.
We're not done.
Sit down, we got more to vote
Are
on.
you serious?
On number 8 now.
That was only the second thing we worked on tonight. We got 8 more.
Hey, sit down, you didn't get mad, did you?
4 more.
I'm kidding. We do have a few more, though.
4 more of these, and they are somewhat, or at least 2 groups of them are somewhat interrelated, so.
Oh, well, maybe we can double up then.
Some water.
All right, thank you. Did we need to take a break or something? Do y'all want to take about can we take about a
How much longer have we got?
10-minute break? We'll start back at 6:30, okay?
6:30 or 7:30?
I was about to take a break. Mr. Chairman, I was about to take a break either way with you.
No, both of them are, oh, he sat there. I don't know where, there he is. No, he's back there. He's back there getting on the next issue, I guess. He wants to know how many people she represents.
Whatever. Huh? Yeah, well, she pounded on me right out of the damn gate. And I made a statement of fact last
I
time.
did too.
Right.
We ready? All right, we'll bring the meeting back to order. Mac, what do we got up next?
We have a couple of, well, actually 4 projects that relate to 2 different DRIs. Prominence DRI Amendment Number 2 at Grace Point, agenda item number 8, and the corresponding agenda item number 9, the Prominence PUD Amendment Number 2, are really talking about the same parcels. So Renee is going to present these. She has reviewed these. She's going to present them essentially together because it talks about the same issue. We just have 2 items that we have to amend, both the DRI and the PUD. for the same purpose.
Okay.
So we'll have two motions, Mr. Chairman, but we will take public comment on both 8 and 9 at the same time after Ms. Bradley finishes her staff report.
Are we hearing them separately? I mean, is this something we can hear and then kind of vote on together?
We got to have two separate motions, two separate votes. We have to have a vote on 8, a vote on 9, but we can consolidate the hearing
Okay,
and let
great.
everybody speak for one issue.
Okay, good.
And Renee will explain how they're directly related.
Okay, thank you.
I'll turn it over to her.
Renee Bradley, Walton County Planning and Development. This is the Prominence Development of Regional Impact Amendment Number 2. It's located in Grace Point of Prominence. This is a major development. Removal of 0.49 acres and preservation buyout of 0.0675 acres. All these changes are within Grace Point. This property has future land use district of traditional neighborhood located in District 5 is identified by parcel number.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. Item number 9 is the PUD amendment that goes concurrently with the DRI development order. These are regulated by the same ordinance and development order. They're basically identical. The only difference with the plan unit development is that's where you find all your variances and exceptions to the land development code, which was done with the PUD. So if that explains that difference for everybody.
So we can deal with them together as
Yes,
far
sir,
as
we
the hearing
can.
goes, and then we'll
We're
vote.
not requesting to amend anything in the PUD other than exactly what we're amending in the DRI, so there's no deviations that is requested with this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any technical outstanding comments. We have received public comment. The public comment's in your packet, except for one handout that I received yesterday afternoon. That was Mr. Kern, I believe, that called in earlier. I'm sure he will be on video for that. And unless you have questions of me, I will turn this over to David to explain the process of what they're going through.
Any questions for staff?
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you, Renee. Mr. Smith?
Record, I'm David Smith with Interlight Engineering, and I'm representing JS Partners Grace. I'm going to get a few exhibits set up here. They presented, we're before you requesting an amendment to the Prominence PUD and DRI. And I'd like to just do a brief overview of Prominence. The PUD and the DRI were originally approved in 2007. It was then amended in 2013, and specifically it was a reduction in density and intensity at that time, and that amendment was for 625 units. So that's 197 single-family homes and 428 multifamily homes. It's 40,000 square feet of commercial and 13,000 square feet of civic. That approval is what was then used for all of the development orders and the construction, and that's Prominence. The way that it's development that is developed today is under that 2013 amendment. So we're before you as presented to another amendment to the PUD and the DRI, and specifically that amendment generally for this area. Phase 2 South, as it was approved in the amendment in 2013, this portion Phase 2 South was approved for 89 single-family lots. This portion of Prominence was developed. This was 41 lots, which left 48 lots remaining. In 2014, the hub was approved. This is 30,000 square feet, so there's 10,000 square feet of commercial that's remaining. That was to be located down in the southwest corner of the Grace Point. 1,000 square feet was proposed at that time. So in 2015, JS Partners Grace, that was for 43 single-family lots. So I'm going on the remaining density that's left. So that left 5 lots. So they developed 43 lots at that time from the available 48. So there were 5 lots that were remaining. In 2018, Grace Point was amended to remove 1 lot. So now there's 6 lots remaining in the Prominence PUD. In 2019, 2 lots were removed, specifically lots 42 and 43, and those lots were in this area here. So that left 8 available lots in Prominence today. So part of this amendment is to reconfigure 5 lots, lots 34, 35, 39, 40, and 41. Those lots are located in this area. So that's the total density of 13 lots. So what we are proposing, that was a long intro, what we're proposing are 3 buildings with 13 units, 1,000 square feet of commercial. And the reason you would have your traffic coming through, you would have deliveries coming through the single-family neighborhood. You would also have your waste management coming through the single-family neighborhood. We have in the commercial on the northern portion of family residential neighborhood. One of the just so I stay the same way. This is a zoomed-in version. Here, this building is so it's 3 units with 1,000 square feet of commercial, and these 2 buildings each have 5 parking below each of the units.
So 5 each?
So there's 5, 5, and 3, for a total of 13. And then there's 10,000 square foot restaurant. So we're proposing to relocate the driveway that goes into Grace Point. It goes relocate over this area. Parking that's adjacent to the driveway with a roundabout. And we're also proposing to take commercial traffic from going into One of the other things part of the request is down here at the south, lots 6 and 7. The developer is proposing to combine those lots into 1 lot, so that's 1 more available unit that we are proposing to take 2 lots here, so it's actually once you go through the gate, class, from people looking to the east. Also part of this request is we're reducing the Prominence PUD and DRI boundary by 0.48 acres. That is here. And that is actually an item after these 2 agendas. That property is becoming part of
Let me understand, parking on that, on this, poster right here. Parking along the road, is that gonna be residential parking? Or, yes, yeah.
It is.
It's
So this building will have 11 units.
All right.
Below the, so this will also have 11 parking spaces. I mean, it's 11 parking spaces below this building, 11 parking spaces. So the 3 residents here, the restaurant is here, so this parking will be available for the commercial use.
So that's for commercial and residential parking right there?
Which the only commercial is the restaurant, right?
That's correct. And I do want to point out.
How many spaces is that?
Here we have a total of 57 parking spaces. So we have more parking spaces than we're required. Prominence has its own parking regulations.
So you got 13 residents with two, gonna get two apiece, I'm assuming. Well, I was counting all of them, yeah.
So like, for example, these 5 units here have 11 spaces. Serve this building. This building will also have 5 units, so it would be able to serve this. No parking proposed because the restaurant.
About half of it's gonna be for residential.
This building basically.
Yeah, you got 2 units per, 2 parking spaces per
Two
unit.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying, but,
So you have 11 spaces and 5 units? 11 spaces and 5 units.
oh, they're gonna be parked right there.
Underneath.
Yeah, no, you misunderstood my question, because they're gonna, that on the street is, they're not gonna park there, they're gonna park right here.
Yes, sir,
Yeah,
under their
yeah.
building.
Exactly, that's what I was asking. Yeah, yeah, they're gonna park under the building.
Yes, sir.
And all those parking places are gonna be commercial, basically on the street.
And these.
Right, and those 3 units,
I apologize
gotcha.
if I made that more
Well,
complicated.
that's what I was trying to.
Explain that these 3 units.
Right, I
all
was
have
wondering,
parking under the building.
clear that up in my mind, okay.
What if visitors come for the 2 buildings that have parking? The visitors will be able to park out on the street,
I mean,
right?
my first impression.
It's
was-
shared parking.
Okay.
Yeah, my first impression was everybody's gonna park there, but that's not the case, so.
No, there's parking under the
Under,
buildings.
under the building, right.
Under these 2 buildings.
Okay,
yes, sir.
gotcha, okay.
And so with the overall PUD DRI amendment, the unit count is the same, 625 units. It's a reallocation exercise, so it's 184 single-family homes, 441 multifamily homes, but the total of 625 units is the same as what's originally approved in 2013. The 40,000 square feet of commercial is exactly the same, and the 13,000 square feet of Civic is the same. We're not asking for any additional units, any additional intensity. This is a reallocation exercise that is before you this evening. We're not asking for rezoning or future land use amendment. I know that's been discussed this evening, so we already have, what we need here. And one of the other things I want to point out is something that was very important to us was to reach out to the neighborhood and to the community. And we've had numerous community meetings. We had our first community meeting on May the 3rd, and that community meeting was specific to the Grace Point Homeowners Association. We had a good turnout, and we did receive some good feedback. We had a second community meeting the next day. It was the next night, and we sent a mail out for every residence in Prominence. That's over 600 people that we invited to this community meeting. Also had a good turnout, and we received some good feedback. And I'll give you an example. Is originally that was, obviously, we had a very positive meeting. We then, the developer, whose name is Jason Benedict, has also had meetings, both individually and additional community meetings with several of the residents within Grace Point. Specifically, there was another one on June the 4th. So I want to point out, we've had many community meetings. We wanted, obviously, to meet the neighbors, let them know what we were doing, and certainly answer any questions or comments that they could have. And also, we made some changes as a result of those meetings. We already covered the parking as well, so I did want to point out we are providing more parking than the bare minimum that we are required to provide within Prominence, because I know parking has been a big discussion item. Lastly, in summary, I want to point out that Jason, his name's Jason Benedict, is the main owner of Partners Grace and the developer. Jason lives in Grace Point. This is going to be a very nice development, and it's something that he lives here and he wants to see be nice, and he'll be driving, through this area as well. I think that's very important to this. He's also a resident here. So he's one of the owners in Grace Point. And just to show you guys a few of what the building will look like. This is driving. Scale of what the buildings will look like. I mean, they fit in with the character of the community.
Are they already there, most of them?
Most of them are. They're still
Okay.
but you see the scale, the character, very similar to the whole building.
Did you get any comments from because it looks like there's a couple of houses that are built right next to this, adjacent to it. Have you talked to those owners?
We did. Specifically, the owners of lot for 3. Their main
Mm.
Here's a good one too, though. This parking area looking west.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Give you a snapshot of what those would look like. So in summary, not asking for any increased intensity or density. We're asking reallocation exercise consistent with the approved PUD and DRI. And I would respectfully request to speak at the end, if I could, please, once the either members of Zoom or the audience have a chance to speak, and I
Sure,
would be more than
we'll get
happy
a chance.
to answer any questions you all may have.
Yes, sir. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll open it up to public comments. Anybody in the audience like to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll go to, oh, we have one? Yes, sir. Can you come up to the microphone? Yes, sir.
Yeah, the Discover 8 and 9.
Can you tell her your name and spell it?
Eddie Mitchell, Tallahassee, Florida.
Okay.
The Discover 8 and 9.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what
It
he was
does.
discussing.
It does.
Yeah, I only found out about this today about 2:30 or 3 o'clock. A friend of mine from Alabama that lives in Prominence called me and told me about the signs that they had up there and all. And I'm actually a owner at Grace Point, but for 2 years now, I've been trying to get accounting on what's going on there. And I felt like it was necessary for me to come to this meeting because the things that they're talking about doing here, I'm not aware of. I don't know whether I object to them or what, but I just want that. I'm not going to stand here and say I am objecting or not, but there will be, I've got to look into this because the people that run Grace Point are not giving us any accounting. They're not telling us what they're selling, what they're buying. And when they start talking about changing zoning and this kind of stuff, then that was when I felt like I needed to, quit listening to, we'll get it to you in 30 days or 60 days or something like that.
Did you follow what he was saying a while ago on what they're doing in there?
I couldn't really see what y'all were looking at. I saw some of it. It looks very nice, I mean, I'm not standing here to object and say it's not beneficial to the community or whatever, but I am standing here saying that I don't know what might be coming up. I mean, especially when we got St. Joe buying land and changing zone and this and that, and I've got to get with my attorneys and see what's going on. That's just what and I really can't understand why I'm not already been made aware of all this and involved in the community meetings he's talking about. I wasn't invited to them.
Well, I know you said they sent out 6, 7, sounds like you sent out more information to residents than are required. You got a 300-foot radius that you have to inform everybody. I don't know where your property is, but
You
The
wanna
best,
explain it?
well, I'm gonna try, I'm trying to understand too, but
I
the,
am an owner of
he's
Grace
the best I can tell, he's a partner of JS Partners Grace, is what he's telling me. He's not an owner of a single-family home in Prominence. He's saying he's a partner in the development LLC. This is my first time understanding.
I own about 4.5%.
Oh, okay, well,
That's why he wasn't notified, because
I
he
got
does.
you, yeah, that,
And I'm just finding this out too, so, I told him technically, I guess I work for him, but.
yeah. Did you want to, did you want to fire him?
Yeah.
Did you want to fire him while you're here?
No, it looks good. All I want is some of that.
Okay. Well,
I'm just finding
maybe
this out,
y'all
too.
can talk after the meeting
I
and
gave him
figure
my
some
phone
things
number as
out.
well,
So,
yeah.
okay.
I need to talk to people with St. Joe. Like I say, I just need to be on the end.
Yes, sir. I understand. Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the audience want to speak on this? How about Zoom? We got anybody on Zoom wants to speak? Heather?
Yes, thank you, sir. My name is Heather Carlton, and I live in Grace Point as my primary resident, my only residence. And we are actually that house that the gate was splitting our house at the beginning. And I want to thank Mr. Smith for moving that back. I appreciate that. But I do want, there's a lot going on here, and I want to make sure that you all are aware. We still haven't received a certified letter or any formal communication. We've received emails, but we have lacked that formal communication from Mr. Smith's company that we believe are entitled to. Our neighbors have been receiving certified mailings, so that's the only reason I know that they have been sent out. So I would plead with Mr. Smith, please put us on the mailing list. I've sent in our address to both Jason, the developer, to Mr. Smith's company. If we could please get on an official mailing list for notices, I would greatly appreciate that. There are two corrections, or at least two things that maybe Mr. Smith can address. One, the developer does not live there. He does have a house that's currently being built, but he does not actually live in the community yet. And I know that Mr. Smith has represented that he does. So I want to make sure that we are correct in what we are saying to you. The other correction I would like to address is on the map, it's actually incorrect where the commercial was previously that they want to move. There's an incorrect lot placement. They're missing a lot at that end of Grace Point. So I don't know if Mr. Smith would like to make sure that those drawings get corrected, but I think it's important that they're accurately represented. With those being said, I am very grateful to Mr. Smith, to Jason, for meeting with us via Zoom, with having the design team redraw things for us. We are still really concerned as a community. We've been talking 4th of July was a great time for the neighbors to be out together. We were really concerned with entering a parking lot to get into our neighborhood. We all have children. We like to ride bikes out. We're really concerned with little kids riding bikes through a parking lot where cars are trying to pull in, back out, go around other cars that are waiting for people to, back out of their spaces. It just really concerns us as parents that there could be a real safety issue. And then the other thing I think, which is the consensus with Grace Point owners, we were all told that this is a single family residence, and now that condos are being presented, it seems completely out of the blue, and we're pretty concerned about it. So that's kind of my spiel. I know when we purchased our house, we were told that next to us would be another home. That's obviously changed in this plan. So I mean, it's a beautiful drawing, although I can't really see it, so I don't know what the latest one is. But we would just, for us and our sake, having a single family residence is what we bought into. And we were just hoping that it would stay like that instead of this, new proposed condo development. And then the commercial. So Mr. Smith, you said that was just going to be a restaurant, but we were told by you and Jason that it was going to be a rooftop pool, a workspace, a gym, like a co-working space as well, and a restaurant. So I just want you to clarify what that's going to be as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll let the applicant answer that. at the end of the public comments. Mr. Kern?
Yes, sir. Thank you. First, I want to just make one general comment. I've had 4 or 5 interactions with Walton County Planning Department, and each one of those interactions has been delightful. They have done a great job. I don't think you get enough compliments on that, and I think I just want to put that out there that y'all should be proud of how you are handling these things and your communication. I want to thank you very much. You know, y'all laughed a minute ago when the previous partner of Jason got up and said he wasn't aware what's going on. Y'all laughed. And that's the problem that I'm having here. There is no definitive communication. I am an owner in Grace Point, a resident in Grace Point. I'm a 37-year real estate developer. The lack of communication, the amount of detail that's provided to the community has been lacking. I've never seen the elevations that Mr. Smith just held up. It's not in the package that I've been sent. It's not in the package that my family, that's our partners in this deal, has been sent. And so that's a problem to me, trying to wrap my brain around it. Secondly, I've done a lot of restaurants in my lifetime as a real estate developer. A 10,000 square foot restaurant is a large restaurant. Typically, large restaurants want parking spaces for 5 to 10 spaces per 1,000. That's 50 to 100 spaces. They're seating, a 10,000 foot restaurant can seat 150 people. If it's 50% full and there's 1 car per person, they've already exceeded the parking requirement for the project. Just because zoning requires a certain number of spaces doesn't mean it's appropriate for the actual use. That parking for a 10,000 square foot restaurant is going to severely overburden Grace Point. Look at the hub. We sold our house in the hub for that very reason. Yes, they have the number of spaces per zoning code. However, that doesn't necessarily equate to actual use when people start filling up. I could go on and on and on, but I think rather than go on and on and on and talk about the problems, I'd rather spend a minute and talk about the solutions. I'm not against the development being moved from the back to the front. I am a little bit concerned about uses. What I would like to see the commission do is ask that this vote be tabled so we can have further discussions with the developer to work out a suitable plan that incorporates a lot of additional details. I think it's fair for the owners. I think it's fair for the developer. I'm not one to sit there and tell a developer you can't build condos and you can't build, your retail. I think 10,000 square feet, I don't have a conceptual problem with 10,000 square feet. I do have a conceptual problem with 10,000 square feet to a single restaurant that's going to load up people and create rodents. I mean, there's just a lot of other issues. If it was 5,000 feet of the eyeglass place and a shop or something like that in a small place, that's different. So I ask that the Planning Commission ask the developer or make a motion to table both of these matters for at least another 30, 40, 60 days until such time that we can continue to work with the developer in good faith to come up with a plan that works for everybody. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Kern, I will say that the reason we laughed at what was said earlier is because it's not the planning department's responsibility to make sure the partners within a development are communicating with each other. It is the responsibility of the planning department to make sure that the neighbors know and there is a process. Now, if something's happened and things fall through the cracks sometimes, that's why they put signs up. And I think everybody within a 300-foot radius is required to be notified by certified mail. I don't know if you're within that 300 feet, but there are other things that are done to make sure that people know. So that's why. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And that's why I started my remarks with commending the job that you guys do. Y'all have done a great job. I think there's been side meetings that have occurred that where bits of information have been leaked out that have not been shared with the entire community in a cohesive fashion, and that's problematic. And you're right, that's not a reflection of you. That's more to, you know, how do we improve the process from the applicant's standpoint? And for me, rather than say, I'm not going to vote in favor, is let's take a step back and let's kind of reconvene, have a couple more meetings, get greater consensus, and then get this thing resolved.
How did you find out about the meeting?
We finally received a package on Friday last week via mail, and the package was incomplete with the level of information. As a matter of fact, I called Mr. Smith and asked Mr. Smith if he had more detail, and he did send me more detail that showed a better representation of the site plan, and I was surprised. I'm shocked at what I'm looking at in your package up before the commission. That's not the information we're receiving. We are not getting that information. And I don't know if that's intentional, if that's by accident, but like I said, 37 years of doing this, I've seen it all. I know when I feel, this is my opinion, and I want to point that out to the commissioner. This is my opinion, this is not fact. I know when I feel like I'm getting a cram down, and it's feeling a little bit like a cram down. And so all I'm asking is let's take a pause and kind of get everything out on the table and work through it.
All right.
My dad always taught me, don't give me problems, give me solutions.
Okay, you had public meetings on this, didn't you, with the neighbors? Okay.
Yeah, but I've been in all the meetings.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
And I'll stand by that some of this information is new information. But be that as it may, it's still I think the two big points are that the access driving between a parking lot to get to your gated entrance. And for me, it's a 10,000 square foot single restaurant. And that's really tough to swallow in this community.
I understand. Parking is an issue, but it's not something that it's not under our authority. That comes from the engineering department, that we go by their codes that they set up.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. We got somebody else? AB? Is it AB or AB?
Hi there. My name is, hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, thank you for letting me talk. I do think what people are
Can you
trying to say.
state your name for us? Can you state your name?
Yes, my name is Elizabeth Shore.
Okay.
I think what people are trying to say is that there have been meetings and they have asked for our feedback, but at this point, there have only been really one or two minor changes. And compared to all of the issues that were brought up by the residents in the neighborhood, we don't feel that most of those issues were addressed at all. So we were still hoping to be able to participate in the discussions so that we could explain the things that we were concerned about. And I think when it's mentioned that there's a 10,000 square foot restaurant, it's my impression that it's, and you were asked, by the way, or sorry, you asked if the retail was just a restaurant, and I was told that the retail was a restaurant, a coffee shop, a WeWork space for sort of plug-in offices, a fitness center, and a rooftop membership restaurant bar. So there's a lot of types of commercial spaces within the first building, not just a restaurant. So now that I hear what's being discussed today, I'm starting to wonder if I'm clear on what's included in the first building as well. But knowing that we're all sort of hearing different versions of what's planned, I think some of the concerns come from issues of, food trucks entering into the neighborhood, linen trucks, garbage trucks that have to pick up large dumpsters because of the restaurant. A lot of the infrastructure, the traffic, the parking, all of these issues are going to factor into a project like this. And our fear is that, we bought houses in a gated neighborhood and thought we were buying into a single home family that was private and gated and somewhat quiet. And instead, it's turning into, 3 commercial buildings at the entrance. There's really very limited parking in the neighborhood itself. Even when we have guests, there's nowhere for them to park. And if this area, this proposed plan becomes a reality, we're actually concerned that in our own neighborhood, we're not going to have enough parking spaces to accommodate the residents, much less anybody trying to get to the restaurant and the fitness center and the pools and all that stuff. So these are the things that we would like to talk to the developer about and sort of be a part of the plan, because we do have a lot of pride in our neighborhood. We are excited about something being planned and being developed, but the fears are real. And, with such extensive commercial space and so many condos, and to your point about if someone visits, a condo owner, where do they park? Well, they park in the retail space. And as you can imagine, with the hub being directly next door, having their own major parking issues, this might just exacerbate that part of 30A. And we don't want to be a part of that, to the point where we can't get into our own homes because we have to drive through a parking lot and then a turnaround to get to our private gate to get through to our house.
Okay,
So I think the communication is not real clear, and there's a lot of moving parts to this proposal. It's not just the commercial space. It's, adding another unit, making what was usually a single family residence into a 0-lot, triplex or duplex effect, and the green space being removed or bought out in exchange for gravel parking spaces and so forth. So we would like to see the green space kept, not in the form of a gravel parking space, but in an actual, grassy park or something of that effect. But it doesn't appear that that's what's in the plan. So thank you for letting me talk about this. And again, what we would like to do is, as a community, we would really like to be a part of it, not just talking and then the conversation ends with no resolution, but actually getting feedback back and forth and being a part of the planning so that everyone can be on board and everyone's fears can be put to rest, and we will have a full understanding of what we can expect, both traffic-wise and parking-wise and so forth. And then I think you'll find that the whole community would be in support of this whole project.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
I've got a question for you. Did you attend any of their meetings?
I've attended every single meeting.
Okay, all right. How many meetings do y'all have?
We have had,
Okay.
you guys have had one technical review meeting, and I was a part of that and spoke at that meeting. And then we've had about 2 neighborhood Zoom meetings.
Okay. The applicant said he had 3 meetings, neighborhood meetings, but I just wanted to see how that was going. And I guess at the technical review, you voiced your opinion on things there too, didn't you?
Yeah, several of us did, and I think we were told that it just was going to get pushed through because it wasn't the role of the technical review to sort of address all of our concerns and issues. And that's another part of our fear, is we don't really know at what phase our issues will be addressed. I mean, one of the questions about the drawing that's before you right now, the end of the neighborhood that shows the commercial area, that doesn't exist as you see it on your map. If you were to walk in our neighborhood, what you would see are houses that have been built in that spot. So to say we might put the commercial at the end or we might put it at the front, we'd just like to reallocate it, isn't really an accurate portrayal of what's going on, because at the end of the neighborhood, there's already houses built. And many of us who bought homes in this neighborhood were told that there would be like a restaurant. I was told a small restaurant at the front of the neighborhood and some more houses. You know, we're sort of worried that this giant plan is just going to go through and the road is going to change and the traffic's going to increase, and we're just going to have to, you know, live in a neighborhood that is nothing like what we had originally bought into. And we love this neighborhood. We're a very close-knit neighborhood. We love the houses. We love the developer. We love everything about this community. It's just the fear of the unknown and everyone not being included and the plans not being very clear. That's what's worrying everyone.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We have Heather. Oh, she's already spoken? Okay, then you got anybody else on there? All right, we're done with all this, so we'll close public comments at this time. Mr. Smith, you want to speak on these issues? Okay.
I want to thank Ms. Carlton for correcting me, because I was under the impression Jason's house has been finished. It's under construction.
Oh,
So
okay.
she is correct, and I don't want to mislead, so I want to thank her for correcting me. His house is under construction in Grace Point. He will live there. He'll be a resident there when this is built. So
Okay.
obviously, he wants to ensure that it's nice. His house is under construction, so he will be a resident, but he technically does not live there right now. His house is being built. So she is correct. And then my understanding is she recently purchased her house. When we do a mail out, we use the property appraiser's information, and her information hasn't been updated on the property appraiser's website. So, and I know she can hear me now. So Ms. Carlton, I know you have my contact information. If I could please get your email address, I will personally email you any correspondence just to make sure you get that. On the 2013 amendment for Prominence PUD, commercial is shown in the south part of Grace Point, as I presented. And we are proposing, as you guys know, to reallocate that to the north side of Grace Point. So that commercial was identified in the southwestern portion of Grace Point back in the 2013 amendment.
Was that, it was just that it was commercial, there was no...
There was a pool facility and there was a restaurant proposed at that time in the pool facility.
So if there's a restaurant back there, then the traffic they're worried about is going to be on the front, but the garbage trucks and all that stuff are going to be going through the whole neighborhood.
That is
to get
correct,
there.
yes, sir.
Okay.
But that's what we don't want to happen, and so that's why we want the commercial to be up front. But you're exactly right. There is a rooftop pool, but that pool will serve the residents. So the roof will be on the top of the northernmost building.
So it won't be open to the whole community?
No, sir.
Okay.
And then there's a gym. Serves the residents. So there's a pool and a gym, but the restaurant, as I mentioned, is on the lower level. That will be open to the public.
So the only thing open to the public is the restaurant?
That is correct. Yes, sir. And then with Mr. Kern's comments with the communication, I do know Mr. Kern's been, to my knowledge, has been invited to every meeting. He's participated in the meetings, and I've interacted with him in the meetings. And then, as he said, we did speak on the phone, and I did send him some additional information to try to assist. But, you know, on a mail out, I can't send everything we turn in because these packages, you know, are very large, but everything is on CitizenServe, and everything you have in your package is available for the public. So, and I always tell everyone, and I'll send you anything you want. Just give me a call, and I'll certainly email it to you. And I did email him. I emailed him this plan so he could see what we were doing. The parking, we do exceed the minimum requirement of Prominence. Prominence does have its own parking requirements that are approved as part of the PUD. I don't ever want to come and be accused of forcing anything, because you guys know I just spent the last year and a half on one project. And this is a conceptual PUD. So I could stand up here and say this is a conceptual PUD, and we don't have to get into the specifics at this time. We've gone to great lengths to get into the specifics because we wanted to meet with the community and try to show them what we're wanting to do. We've made major changes to this plan too. I mean, we've moved the entire driveway, we've included a roundabout. That was all a result of the community meeting on a detailed plan that we technically didn't have to do until we get to the technical development order stage, assuming the PUD and the DRI are approved. But I want to share, we went to great lengths to do a technical plan just because we don't want to be accused of trying to force something, because that's not what we want to do. And that covers everything, so I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you all have of me.
How many people live in that community, total people?
It's 40, it's currently 42 homes.
How many attended your meetings?
The first one, I want to say we had around 20 or 30 participants. The second one was all of prominence. We had more, and don't hold me to this, but it was in the 30s as well, maybe 38. So again, everybody is important. So I don't want to make it sound like some people aren't.
So you
But
had
650 mail-outs went out, and you can see where
You had good participation
Yes,
at
sir.
your meetings.
And we invited all of prominence to the second meeting.
Well, that exceeds the requirements because you're only supposed to 300-foot radius, right?
Yes, sir. And we're technically only supposed to do that for this meeting. You know, we've done the mail-outs to do multiple community meetings.
Well, I know things fall through the cracks sometimes, like you said, the lady that just moved into her place and
Yes.
she didn't, the mailing address, but that's also why they put up signs and other things just to try to overlap.
Which we did that. But again, I don't want to make it sound like the people aren't, they're very important, but we've been interacting with 650 and, so
Well,
we've
I'm
gone
more
to great
worried
lengths
about
to
the
try.
process. I think Mr. Kern alluded to the fact that our process was not working, and I wanted to make sure that, I know the planning department goes to a lot of trouble to try to make sure people get this information. And if there's something that's not being done, I mean, we'd love to correct it, but if we're doing everything possible, then sure, some things may fall through the cracks. But most of the time, everybody that needs to know and wants to know will know.
And then the way I like to do it, because it's a privilege to come before this board, I go above and beyond. I want to go meet with the residents, and I'm working for a developer that agreed to do that. So I prefer let's meet and go to great lengths before we come into this forum. So they do a great job of the requirements, but we like to go above and beyond.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. When you sent out 600 and something,
We didn't have to do that,
no, no.
but we wanted to do that.
And you only had 3 people at that?
Yes, sir. But there were more people with concerns, but we've gone to great lengths to try to appease and make changes that we could make. You know, some of the things, obviously, we can't do respectfully, but, you know, we really worked hard to try to come up with a plan that works for everyone.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, commissioners, comments, discussion, motions?
I move to approve number 8.
I'll second
We got
that.
to take this a single at a time, don't we? Okay, so okay, so this is the motion to amend the DRI?
The DRI amendment is number 8.
Okay. All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now we can take up number 9.
Correct.
And I forgot what that one was, how was that one titled?
Amendment. That's the PUD amendment.
PUD amendment, okay. So now we need a motion on the PUD amendment.
I'll move to approve the PUD amendment.
We have a motion?
Second it.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Renee, are you next again?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, she's got 2 more. Water
Do
Sound
they go
PUD
together?
amendment, and then we'll get to Water Sound Origins Phase 7.
So how many of these are we taking together, Renee?
Just one.
This is,
But
okay,
it-
this is that
It
section.
actually
that was-
related to the 2. This is the .48 acres, I believe David clarified. Their survey is actually .48 acres. But this is the Water Sound
Ms. Bradley,
PUD.
before we start, then what we'll do we will take individual comments on each, but if you speak on the first, we just ask that you don't come back up and restate exactly what you said on the first on the next 2. So we're gonna have to take separate comments on each. We won't be able to combine them. Let's don't let it be repetitive for the sake
Oh,
of
yeah,
it.
we don't want to hear anything else on the last 2, since we've already voted on that.
So the last two aren't exactly related. One is the Water Sound North DRI. The number 10 is the Water Sound PUD, which is adjacent to Grace Point. So we're taking this one totally by itself. It's just related to the first two. Thank you. Okay, so this is a major development order application submitted by O'Connell and Associates Consulting Engineers on behalf of Water Sound Beach Club LLC. They're requesting to add 0.48 acres from Prominence to the Water Sound PUD. These properties is located in District 5 and are identified by the parcel IDs in your packet. This is the 0.48 acres that's being removed from Prominence is being bought, or it has been bought by St. Joe Company, and it's my understanding that it's to be used for a road. So we're not doing any land use changes or anything to this at this time. I will be glad to turn this over to John unless you have questions of me, and I'd like to enter the staff report into the record, please.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Y'all got
Thank
any
you.
questions for staff? Okay, thank you, Renee. Mr. Nash?
Nash with O'Connell and Associates Consulting Engineers. Renee said most of it. There's a portion of the northeast corner of Prominence in Grace Point that was acquired by St. Joe Company several years ago. And they're looking to reconstruct the Dune Drift Lane intersection a little bit that will touch that property, and in doing so, we're required to add it to the Water Sound PUD. Requesting to add that. It doesn't come with any development entitlements. It's literally just that property. But there's a future project that this would facilitate in order to reconstruct that intersection to add a larger gatehouse and a reconfigured gate for the Water Sound Beach Club. If you've got any questions for me, I'm happy to try and answer them.
Questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you, sir. We'll let you speak at the end of public comments. All right, we got anybody in the audience who'd like to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll go to Zoom. Anybody on Zoom wants to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll close public comments. Commissioners, got any questions, comments, motions?
Motion to approve?
You have a motion?
I'll second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right, Renee, you bringing us in for a landing?
This is Water Sound Origins Phase 7. This is a major development order application submitted by Interlight Engineering Corporation on behalf of Water Sound Company LLC. They're requesting to construct 72 single-family lots and associated infrastructure on 54.11 acres with a future land use of mixed use in zoning district, future land use of zoning district of Bay Walton Sector Plan Village Center. The project is located in District 1 and is identified by the parcel IDs in your packet, and I'd like to enter the staff report into the record, please.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have any outstanding technical comments on this, and I have not received any public comment, and I'd be glad to answer any questions for the board.
Any questions for staff? Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Smith?
Record, I'm David Smith with Interlight Engineering. And as Renee mentioned, this is a request to construct 72 single-family homes, and it's consistent with the approved plan unit development. And pointed to the plan, the lots on average are 55 feet by 140 feet wide. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Got any questions for the applicant? I don't have any either, so. But we're all thinking. We're trying to come up with something. I can see the brains turning.
Where is this exactly?
This is in Water Sound Origins.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Water Sound Origins. It's out on the east part of the county.
That West Bay sector plan, that deals with all of their wetland permits and everything in one fell swoop, doesn't it?
Well, with all of their wetland permits, they have what are called RGP EMA permits, regional general permits, and ecosystem management areas, and that deals with their wetlands. Their sector plan is their approval for the entire area.
Are any wetlands affected in this?
Yes, they are. But
But
those are consistent with what they're allowed to do in their RGP EMA permits.
Gotcha. And I think, is there any way to explain that briefly for anybody that may be listening and doesn't understand it?
Very interesting, because they have approvals from the Corps of Engineers to impact a certain amount of wetlands, and there's limitations and criteria for them to be able to do that. So they've already gone through great lengths to get those approvals, and so when an application is filed for wetland impacts, it's a lot faster than what a traditional developer would have to go through with the regulatory agencies to impact wetlands through dredge and fill permitting, because they've gone to great lengths to get these permits.
That's because of the amount of acreage that they owned at one point. They used a lot of that acreage as mitigation for these permits. Is that
And
correct?
conservation as well. There are a lot of conservation easements, so part of the agreements is they do dedicate conservation easements as well.
But this doesn't come up in a lot of these, and I don't want people to think we're bypassing any of the wetland permits and not thinking about it. It was done years ago when they originally did their West Bay sector plan. It took all that into account with the DEP.
And the Corps. And so every project, they have to have formal pre-application meetings with all the agencies, very large meetings. So from my experience, it's actually wetland permitting to the next level, you know. So we're not, I want to make a point, we're not bypassing anything when it comes to wetlands. It's just they've taken it to the next level as far as their approvals.
I just didn't want people, anybody on Zoom, there's not that many people there, but I didn't want people to think that it didn't get considered. You know, we understand how this works, so we've already considered all that. So it's not like we just conveniently forgot to deal with the wetlands on this issue.
I mean, does a great job of reviewing it and interacts with RGP MA permits and comments on those. So we are consistent with those permits.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
All right, we'll open to public comment. Anybody in the audience want to speak on this? Sure. All right. Anybody on Zoom want to speak on this? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comments. Commissioners, questions?
Motion to just do one at a time or all together?
This is just one.
It's one, yeah.
Standalone, yeah.
Yeah,
Number
this
11.
is it.
This number.
You want to make multiple
I'll
motions?
make it, yeah.
You want to cover some of the next meeting in one?
We'll take about a 30-minute break.
They were getting delirious.
I
That's the
move we
problem.
approve number 10, the
I second that.
PUD amendment.
All right, we have a motion.
I think we already did that. We're at approved 10, we're on number 11.
Oh, yeah, let's not approve that again. Yeah, we're on number 11. I was trying to get to that page. Okay, if you want to make a motion for that one, you can.
Yeah, oh, yeah, number 11.
Okay, a motion to approve number 11 on the agenda, Phase 7. We have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, any more comments? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Our motion carries. Thank you. I think we got to be careful driving home. I don't think we got our brains about us anymore.
Goodbye.
Did not pertain, how do those people that find